I solemnly swear that I will faithfully, diligently, and impartially execute and perform the duties required of me as a member of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and will well and truly obey and perform all lawful orders and instructions which I shall receive as such, without fear, favor, or affection of or towards any person. So help me God.
The Queen's Men. For the first time, authentic stories of the world-famous Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Tales of men who for almost 100 years have helped to keep peace in Canada. The Queen's Men. The Queen's Men. True stories of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Names have been changed for family protection. And now transcribe The Queen's Men.
Well, now, for a good example of arson, how about that case a couple of years ago in Saskatchewan? 10 grain elevators burned to the ground within 1 year.
Oh, yes. That was the Phillips case, wasn't it?
Yeah, Phillips was one of them, I remember.
Say, that Phillips case was a dandy.
Yeah, where were you? Were you on it, Sergeant?
No, but I read some of the reports. Enough of them to give you a rough idea how it went, although I'm not sure of all the details. Yes, the company finally called in the RCMP after the 10th fire. They'd had private investigators on it up to then, and the trail was cold. Stone cold.
I'm Sergeant Bronston, Mr. Harris, RCMP. This is Corporal Wells.
Morning.
Well, I sure hope you men can find out the cause of these fires. I tell you, I'm at my wit's end.
Yes, I can understand that. The job might have been easier if we'd been called in before, but we'll certainly do the best we can.
Well, what do you think, Sergeant Bronson? Do you think someone has deliberately been setting fire to our elevators?
Looks like arson to me, Harris, right at the moment anyway. I have my men making a thorough investigation of the ruins of the latest fire. They may find something for us to go on.
Well, I sure hope so. Insurance company hopes so, too.
But my first job, if it is arson, is to determine whether it's being handled from inside the company or a couple of plain firebugs.
Oh, it wouldn't be anybody in the company. My employees are all perfectly trustworthy. Oh, I'm sure of that. Oh, it might be a case of carelessness on someone's part. Don't you think?
10 fires in 1 year? I hardly think so, Mr. Harris. Now, I'd like to see the list of your employees, their specific jobs, and their past histories.
Mm-hmm.
You do have some sort of record on all your help, don't you?
Oh, yes, and I've been through it myself, time after time, hoping I could... No, just a minute. Just a minute. I'll have the girl bring in the records. Miss Anderson, what's that? Out there? Just a minute. Sergeant,
yeah?
She says one of your men is in the outer office. A Constable Davis wants to see you. She didn't know she should interrupt us.
Yes, I'll see him. You go ahead and locate the record book, Mr. Harris. Corporal Wells and I will step outside just for a minute.
Here's the fuse, Sergeant. Looks like it was a fuse originally, anyway.
Yes. Yes, it does. Where'd you find it?
Among the wreckage. I found this detonator, too.
Looks like arson, all right, eh, Sergeant?
I was pretty sure of it anyway, but I feel better having something positive to go on.
There's a wooden framework, quite a large section of wood at the base of the elevator. If the lumber's been properly aged, I figure it's surefire, if you'll pardon the pun.
This time, Davies. But don't let it happen too often.
From the location of this stuff, it looks as though that framework was the target for the bonfire anyway.
Well,
We're on our way, Sergeant.
yeah. Now all we have to do is find the man who set it off.
That's all.
Come on. Let's see if Harris has those records.
RCMP headquarters. Inspector Hayes here. Oh, Davies. What'd you find out this morning? No. No, he hasn't returned yet. Yeah? Yeah. Wait a minute. Here's Bronston now. Yes. Yes, I'll tell him. Goodbye.
Good afternoon, Inspector.
That was Davies. He's just been through the wreckage again, as you instructed him, and found nothing but a rubber, half sunk in the mud. He's bringing it in for fingerprints.
Not much hope, I'm afraid.
No, I don't think so. Says it's size 10, though. Sometimes a size can help. Well, what did you find out?
Nothing from the employees so far. I thought I'd come back and check the arson files. You know, you might get a lead from them. A lead that'd tie back to the company.
Yes, that's as good a thing to try as any. Matter of fact, I've got the file right here.
Oh? Have you, Inspector?
I figured that'd be your next step, so I've been looking it over. Have a look at this.
Yes?
2 men, Phillips and Croto, convicted for arson in this province in 38. Released a year and a half ago.
Uh-huh. Well, what else about them?
Just that they were originally convicted for setting fire to grain elevators. Thought it might tie in.
Say, it just might, Inspector. What's the latest information on them?
I have Martin checking them now. Let's wait and see what he finds. Here we are, Bronson. We have the addresses of these men listed.
Good.
They were released on parole, so we've kept a check on them. When last heard of, they were living in the town of Black River.
Black River?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's just a few miles out of town.
Yeah.
A lot of the workers from the grain company live there.
That's right. Looks as though they've been keeping in touch. If not with us, with the grain business.
Well, now, let's take a look at their motive. If they're not employed by the company, then it isn't a grudge or inside profit. If they're just firebugs, then why pick grain elevators exclusively?
Yes, go on.
Now, they're obviously in it for some kind of profit.
Mhm.
And they'd get that profit if they were working hand in hand with someone who is employed by the company.
That makes sense.
Someone who's being very careful not to do the job himself.
Now, assuming your theory's correct, Sergeant, how do you propose going about discovering just which employee they're working with?
Oh, haven't figured that out yet, Inspector. I think I better investigate these 2 men first.
Mhm.
See if they're still around Black River. Then I'll proceed from there.
Well, what do you make of that, Sergeant?
It's very puzzling. The 2 men are living here in town, all right, and don't seem to be employed. Well, now, how do they live?
The landlady wasn't very cooperative.
Well, I didn't want to question her too closely. I don't want them getting suspicious. As it is, she thought we were just looking for a room to rent. We'll leave it that way for a while.
Lucky we were able to rent a room right next to them.
Yes, we'll occupy it this afternoon. When the men are out, we'll make our arrangements for watching them. And meanwhile, I'd like to have a little more indication just in my own mind that these men might be our men. You got that rubber with you?
Yeah, right there.
I've checked and found there's just one shoe store in town. If one Phillips or Croteau lost that rubber at the scene of the fire, they'd have bought a new pair by now. Mud in this town. Fella can't get by without rubbers.
Are we heading for the shoe store now?
That's right. It still won't be conclusive evidence, but we have to make the most of what we can scrape up in a case like this.
Why, I've sold 100 pairs of rubbers in the last few weeks, Sergeant, and there's nothing unusual about that one you got. Plain black, size 10.
You don't keep track of your customers, then?
Oh, gee, no. What'd I do that for? Well, who is it you Mounties are looking for, anyway?
Well, I guess we're out of luck this time, Sergeant.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, I wish I could help you. I've got a lot of respect for the RCMP. You men do a swell job. Oh, if you want to hang around till I've waited on this customer...
No, I'm afraid you can't help us much.
Thanks anyway.
Oh, you're welcome, and good luck. Well, yes, mister. Now, what can I do for you?
I want to buy a pair of rubbers.
Why, sure.
Size 10.
Well, didn't I sell you a pair of rubbers just a couple of weeks ago?
Yes, but I lost one. This darn mud. You step right out of the things and you never know where it happened. Oh, aren't you finished waiting on these men?
Why,
Go right ahead. We're just looking around. That was Phillips, all right, Inspector. We recognized them instantly from his photograph.
Well, that's quite a coincidence.
Well, the kind of thing that happens occasionally. And you can hardly believe your good fortune. Looks like a good omen to me, Inspector. I think we're on our way.
Well, now, just a minute. Before you get carried away, that evidence about the rubbers is hardly enough to arrest the man on.
Oh, of course, Inspector. I realize that, but it's one more link in the chain. Makes me feel I'm watching the right man. Wells and I are going to take up our positions in the room next to his this afternoon and keep a close watch.
Have you some means of hearing the conversation in the next room?
Yes. Wells is taking care of that now. Installing a microphone in their room.
Well, you're really on the chase, aren't you, Sergeant? I don't have to point out to you, of course, that anything you overhear in their conversation is not admissible evidence.
Yes, but once we have the goods on them in one form or another, it'll be an easy matter to get a confession.
You're right. You'd better be getting along, then, and good luck.
Here you are, Inspector. Full confession.
Good heavens, Sergeant. I didn't think you'd do it.
Well, it took a couple of days. I must say, though, Harris down at the grain company is pretty sore. He and his insurance investigators have been fooling around with these fires for over a year.
So Phillips and Croteau are our men, eh?
Well, two of them, anyway.
I must congratulate you, Sergeant. That's a mighty nice piece of work.
Before you congratulate me too much, I don't think the whole story's there yet, Inspector.
Oh, how come?
Well, the two men refused to name another accomplice. I still have a very strong feeling that they've been working hand in hand with someone on the inside.
An employee of the grain company?
It doesn't make sense otherwise, Inspector. Why would they set the fires? Just for fun?
I suppose you questioned them about that?
Yes. There was no answer about that one.
Well, at any rate, you've laid the charge and the law can take its proper course. Perhaps something more will come out at the trial.
Desk. Constable Wells.
Sergeant Bronston here. Any word from the courthouse yet?
No, Sergeant. I was figuring myself the trial should be over long ago. Say, just a minute. Henry just walked in. Hold on, will you?
Okay.
How'd the trial go? Oh, Sergeant.
Yeah?
Phillips and Croteau found guilty on 10 charges of arson. Sentence, 10 years.
You know, Wells, there's someone getting off scot-free in this deal.
You still think there's a third, eh, Sergeant?
I'm convinced of it. As it didn't get unearthed at the trial, I'm going to get to work on further investigation immediately. Phone Harris, will you, and tell him to expect a visit this afternoon.
In just a moment, we'll return for the second part of this true story of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Queen's Men. And now we return you to the Queen's Men.
Sergeant, I don't understand you. You caught the men who've been setting these fires. This morning they were sentenced. And now you tell me this case isn't closed.
Well, that's right, Mr. Harris. I don't believe it is closed. I'm sure you want to see us get right to the bottom of it.
Why, certainly. Good heavens, if there's any danger of this kind of thing happening again, well, I'm in bad trouble with the insurance company, you know.
Yes, yes, I expect you are.
Well, anything I can do to assist you, anything at all, you just say the word.
I want to go over your list of employees again. This time, very carefully. I want to make a full check on every of authority, starting at the top.
Why, then, that means you should start with me, Sergeant.
Very well, then. That's what we'll do.
You seem to be in the clear, Mr. Harris.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. You Mounties, you don't leave many stones unturned, do you?
We can't afford to. Oh, here's the sergeant.
Well, now then, Mr. Harris. Next in line to you is Len Buchanan, I believe.
Yes, he's the head foreman, in charge of all the elevator construction gangs in the northern part of the province.
I don't believe I interviewed him last week when I was questioning the employees.
No, he travels around. He was up at Fort Marsh last week. Keeps a careful eye on all our interests. Thoroughly efficient and trustworthy fella.
He is, eh?
Oh, my, yes. Len's been employed with us for 11 years. He's proved himself loyal and conscientious. Len isn't your man, I can assure you that.
Our man is going to turn out to be someone who would be least suspected by his superiors, Mr. Harris. Otherwise, he'd have given himself away a long time ago.
But, Sergeant, you can't go accusing people who are the very core of this firm.
Now, look, your attitude is perfectly understandable. It's always difficult to believe that someone we have trusted may turn out to be dishonest.
Mm-hmm.
But you say you trust all your employees. And I am convinced that someone among them is a troublemaker. And also, I see no reason to overlook Mr. Buchanan. Well, now, let's see. Well, what have we found out so far?
Apparently, Buchanan has full authority to dispose of salvage and to purchase local requirements such as hardware, cement, and other material used in the construction of new elevators. I've been thinking about it, Sergeant. There are a lot of ways in which a man in that position might profit with the continued building of new elevators.
Yes. And his profit would only occur when new elevators were being built.
That's right.
Well, let's see then. These fires started over a year ago. February, wasn't it?
Yep, that was the first one.
Well, then, have you any information on how recently, previous to that time, new elevators had been built?
Yes, I looked into that. The company had been in fairly steady production over the years and had their last construction job the previous summer. Then they called a halt. Said they wouldn't be building anymore for about 5 years.
Which, of course, would be bad news for anyone who'd been raking in a good portion of graft.
Very bad news.
Well, look now, it's just a hunch, but it makes sense. so we better follow it through. I think our next step is to check on all the possible sources of graft in Buchanan's job. See if he's been up to anything. Well, this looks like it.
Oh, yes, officers. Mr. Harris said you'd be dropping in.
This is the pay office then,
Yes, Sergeant. I'm Harry Baker.
How long have you been here, Mr. Baker?
Oh, 15 years.
You've had dealings with Len Buchanan, then?
Oh, yes. Len's a fine fellow. Say, you're not suspicious of Len, are you, Sergeant?
We're suspicious of no one and everyone.
Oh, sure. I understand.
Well, now then, when there's a construction job in progress, I understand Buchanan is in charge of paying the men.
Yeah, that's right. We turn over the checks to Len, and he distributes them. That's so the men won't have to check into the office. Sometimes they're working miles away, and Len has to go around on inspection anyway, so he pays them.
I see. And have you ever had any trouble in that connection?
Trouble?
Any, complaints from the men?
Oh, no, not a one.
Look at them go at it.
Well, it doesn't take them long to get the debris cleaned up and start rebuilding.
What a construction job one of these elevators is.
Tremendous.
Say, you suppose that's the foreman over there?
Well, looks like it. I'd rather just speak to one of the men, though. Let's stroll over to the carpenter.
All right.
Buchanan is supposed to turn up one of these days, isn't he?
Yeah, he's due here today to oversee this construction job. I wonder if he's heard yet that we've been investigating him.
Dare say he has.
You fellas, want to talk to me?
Yes. We won't keep you from your work very long.
Say, you're Mounties, aren't you?
Yes, that's right.
I hear you got the guys that have been starting these fires. Good work, that. They've been operating a heck of a long time.
Means more work for you men, though.
Oh, we'd keep employed anyway. None of us like that kind of work. You do a job once, you don't like to have to scrape up the remains and do it all over again. Personally, I've always thought I'd like to be a Mountie.
Oh, I don't know. Our lives are made up of doing the same job over and over.
Well, you got this arson case all finished and tied up anyways. Well, I guess you're through with it, huh?
Yes, pretty well. Who's your boss on this job?
The big boss, you mean? Well, that'd be Mr. Buchanan.
Oh, is he around?
No, he'd be here this afternoon, though. He always takes over at the start of one of these jobs.
Listen, have you worked under him on many of these jobs?
Yep, last 5 or 6. Why?
Just curious. I hear he's a good man.
Yeah, I guess he's all right.
You say he's all right?
Sure, he's fine. Knows his business. Nobody gets away with anything. And he comes across with the cash every week.
What cash?
Our pay.
You mean your check?
No. Mr. Buchanan, he pays us in cash. You see, on these reconstruction jobs where the elevators have been burned down, it's costing the company a lot of money. They can only afford to pay us for the hours we actually work. Mr. Buchanan explained it all to us.
You don't get your full weekly pay?
No, not in these jobs. That's why we don't like them.
I see. Well, thanks very much. We don't keep you from your work in that case. Come along, Corporal.
I don't understand that at all, Sergeant. That man must have been lying to you.
No, Mr. Harris. We questioned several of the other workmen. They all get paid cash when doing a construction job for Buchanan, with deductions for time off, sick leave, lateness, and so on.
But the company makes out checks to these men every week and gives them to Buchanan.
Exactly. What I want to see now is some of those checks.
There's our evidence, Sergeant.
Yes, no doubt about it. Buchanan's been forging these checks, cashing them, paying the men less than they're entitled to, and pocketing the rest.
How much profit would there be in it?
Not enough to warrant conspiring to burn 10 grain elevators. You can be sure he has other avenues of profit.
Well, that's what we want to look into next.
Yes. They'll want a complete investigation of all the books, every available record in existence having to do with the construction of these elevators. It's a big job, Wells. We got to work quickly. It's just a matter of time before Buchanan knows we're on to him.
You think he might skip?
He might try. We'd catch up with him, of course, but we'll save ourselves a lot of trouble if we beat him to the door.
Well, here's the whole story, Inspector. This man has been carrying on the most successful career of forgery and theft I've seen for a long time.
Looks like you've really got the evidence, Wells. What's this about the receipts?
Very clever trick. He's been obtaining receipts in blank for local purchases and filling in an increased amount before sending them to the head office of the company for refund.
Oh, Sergeant Bronson.
I just made the arrest, Inspector. We have Buchanan on 10 charges of conspiracy to commit arson, and also 46 charges of forgery, theft, and false pretenses.
And the man who had the trust and respect of the entire company.
Yes, sir. He was more than clever.
Well, Sergeant, I want to congratulate you. But for your skill and untiring efforts, we'd have had years of trouble from this man. The force is proud of men like you.
So Buchanan was the ringleader, all right. They got more dope on him, too. By the time he appeared in court, the indictment contained 57 charges.
Wasn't he a smart one?
Yeah. And how long did you say he'd been operating this racket? 11 years.
About that.
He was smart.
Well, he was until he tangled with the RCMP. After that, he didn't have much of a chance. Incidentally, since his arrest and conviction, there have been no elevators destroyed by incendiarism in that province. Those men did a good piece of work.
The Queen's Men, authentic stories of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Music under the direction of Sidney Torch. Script and adaptation under the supervision of John Adaskin. Produced and directed by Harry Allen Towers.
I solemnly swear that I will faithfully, diligently, and impartially execute and perform the duties required of me as a member of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and will well and truly obey and perform all lawful orders and instructions which I shall receive as such, without fear, favor, or affection of or towards any person. So help me God.
The Queen's Men. For the first time, authentic stories of the world-famous Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Tales of men who for almost 100 years have helped to keep peace in Canada. The Queen's Men. The Queen's Men. True stories of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Names have been changed for family protection. And now transcribe The Queen's Men.
Why, I remember the McKee case, breaking and entering. There was a terrific haul, wasn't there, Sergeant?
Well, that's the way it started, but it certainly branched out from there.
Oh, how do you mean?
Well, that was the case where one of them was released on bail and, as a result, really convicted himself. Well, maybe I'd better tell you about it.
Yeah, I wish you would.
Well, it was a couple of years ago. Ferguson was with me. We were driving along Highway 9 on night patrol out of headquarters in Manitoba. And the way it started... Quiet this time of night.
It's always a quiet stretch of road. Trucks have been taking the new route.
No moon.
Well, not yet. Should be out sometime, though. It's a full moon about now, isn't it?
I wouldn't know. What do you think of the new OC?
Well, seems a good man. I haven't seen him in action yet, but I guess he's a good copper. Golden rule man, you know.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Say,
What?
better pull over a bit, Ferguson. Somebody's coming along behind us at a real good clip.
Hey, you're right. He is. Hey, that guy's doing 80.
At least.
Come on, let's go. You better have the siren, Barclay.
Yep.
How do you like that? He wants a race.
He sure does. Step on it, Ferguson.
I don't think we're going to catch him. He's already out of sight. You better put in a call to Constable Peters. He should be parked by the phone up at the intersection.
Car 22, Constables Ferguson and Barkley calling Constable Peters. Ferguson and Barkley on Highway 9 calling Constable Peters.
Peters here?
Where are you? Intersection number 27?
Yeah, Constable, what's up?
Black sedan proceeding south on number 9, approximately 80 miles an hour. He should pass you in 6 or 7 minutes if he doesn't turn out. We've been pursuing him, but we've lost him.
Right. I'll get my bike turned around.
Stop him and hold him till we get there. Don't lose him.
Oh, there they are. Peters has them just off the highway.
Where? I don't...
That lane over there, behind the big tree.
Yeah. Looks as though they tried to turn off.
Well, I guess they gave him quite a chase.
Well, my guess is there's something more than speed demons pulling a stunt like that. Better give them a good search.
All right, you can explain it to these men here.
Good work, Peters.
They hit 100 before I caught up with them.
All right, men. What are your names?
I'm McKee. Charles McKee.
And you?
Eric Campbell.
McKee. Eric Campbell. And which one of you owns this car?
I do.
Let's have your license.
Sure thing, officer. I have it right here. Here you are.
Okay, now what was the rush?
Sorry if we were breaking any rules, officer.
Look, the speed limit on this highway is 50, and you were doing between 80 and 100. I guess you know that.
Why, no. We must have picked up speed gradually without realizing it.
I see. And you raced away from a police siren without realizing that, too.
Well, Eric here, he thought he heard something that could have been a siren, but I didn't hear it myself.
All right, that's enough of that. Unless you're deaf, you heard the siren. You don't act very deaf. Constable Ferguson.
Yes, Constable?
Check the license number, will you? It says here 36674D.
Right. 36674D, you said.
Yeah. Peters, you better get out and patrol the highway. We'll be a little while. Going to search the car.
Sure, Constable. Good night.
Night.
Hey, the license on the back of the car is number 6771D.
Yeah, not much relation to this number. Well, how do you men explain that?
Well, it's quite a long story, officer. You see, this license was issued for another car. Car my brother owned.
Yeah, go on.
Well, my brother took care of getting this car for me, and he made all the arrangements about the license.
Yeah, just a minute. Constable Ferguson, you better start searching the car.
Right.
Yes, you were saying, McKee?
Well, I'm not sure how it happened. Remember, I noticed the license number wasn't the same as on the plate, and I asked my brother about it.
Mm-hmm. What did he say?
Well, now you know, officer, it's just slipped my mind what he said.
Oh, maybe we can find out from your brother.
Hey, here's something.
What?
It's a bottle, partly full of whiskey.
I suppose you men know it's against the law to carry an open bottle of whiskey in a car. All right, climb in. No, the police car.
You're taking us in?
Yes, on a charge under the Provincial Liquor Act.
Oh, but we can explain the liquor.
I'm sure you can. You'll have every chance to explain it at headquarters. Ferguson, you better get in the back and see they behave.
Okay.
We'll have their car brought in later. I wasn't satisfied with their explanations, Inspector. And the fact that they tried to evade us in the first place.
Yes. You did the right thing, bringing them in for further investigation. Where are they now?
Down the hall in 303. Constable Ferguson and Sergeant McNutt are questioning them. I have a check on their fingerprints.
Good idea. You know, there may be a connection. Just before you came in, we received a report of a sizable theft which occurred this evening.
Is that so? Where, Inspector?
At Livingston.
Livingston, eh?
The garage was held up, the safe broken open, and approximately $3,000 in cash was taken.
Let's see, Livingston. What time was the robbery?
About 10.
Well, it could tie in, couldn't it? We were traveling south on Highway 9 at about 10:45 when these men passed us. Livingston is, about 40 miles north and directly off number 9.
Yeah, I see what you mean. These two men pulled that job. They could be in that vicinity at the time you speak of.
Yeah, and a little time to spare. In other words, they could have hidden the money somewhere.
Has the car been thoroughly searched?
Not yet. It's being brought in now. Constables Jeffries and Blaker went out to get it. They should be back any minute.
This robbery has every appearance of being a thoroughly professional job. You may find something on these men, if they are our men, in the fingerprint or photo file.
Yeah, I'd better get to work on it immediately.
Yeah, do that. And see that a detailed search is made of the car. Then report back to me.
No, not a thing, Barkley. No sign of him in any of the files.
And nothing in the car. I've just been through it with a fine-tooth comb. And yet, I don't know. It may be just a coincidence, but the timing of that robbery in Livingston seems to indicate that they're...
Oh, here you are. The inspector thought I might find you here.
Was anything further happen, Peters?
Yes. I don't know if it's of any interest to you, but another report came in from Livingston a few minutes ago.
What report?
Another robbery was pulled, apparently a few minutes after the first one.
Where?
Clothing store, just up the street. Fellow came running down to the garage, and when he heard what happened, and happened into his own store. And there was his safe standing open, and empty as all get out.
Looks like the same man pulled them both.
Yeah, it looks that way, all right. Ferguson, we better think of something fast. We can only hold these men overnight. And if they're responsible, we've got, just 8 hours to get the evidence.
Sounds like a plausible idea, Barkley. Which dog do you want to take?
Duke, I think, Inspector. He works well for me. He's an excellent tracer.
And you plan to give him the scent from the shoes of McKee and Campbell?
Yes, sir. Then I'll take him out to Livingston, to the garage, see if he connects them.
Well, it's a quick way of finding out if there's any connection. You certainly have nothing to lose. So go ahead and good luck.
Thanks.
Quite a few citizens around for 2 in the morning.
Yes, I guess a town this size doesn't often have one robbery, let alone 2. Say, you'd swear that dog knows every word you say. Listen to him react to the phrase 2 robberies.
I'm sorry to disappoint you, Barkley. I don't think he's following your conversation at all. He's growling at a cat we just passed.
Now listen here, Duke. This is no time to indulge in personal feuds.
Oh, that looks like the garage up there, judging by the spectators.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I was hoping we wouldn't have an audience. Duke works better without a cheering section.
Hey, look at them all there. I wonder what they're hanging around for.
Pull up here, this side of the garage.
I guess they heard the Mounties are planning an investigation.
Well, here we are, Duke. Out you get.
Well, tell you what I'll do, Barkley. I'll go on over and talk to the bystanders. I'll question the garage owner. Keep him interested. You can lead Duke around inside. Perhaps he'll pick up the trail.
Good idea.
Look, if he appears to pick up the scent, howbeit if you give me the high sign, I'll join you.
Right. Try and keep them from following us, will you? Here we go, Duke.
He certainly looks anxious to get to work.
Look at that, Ferguson. He's definitely on the trail of something.
Well, he sure seems to think he is.
That's it, Duke, boy. Inspect the doorway if you want. Take your time.
Well, it's 3 doorways he stopped in.
Yeah. The men may have been considering which store to rob. On the other hand, they might have stepped into the doorways to assure themselves that they weren't being watched. The way Duke is pulling, I don't think he's play acting. He's onto something, I'm sure of it.
How did McKee and Campbell react when you took Duke into them to give him the scent?
They didn't know. I had them take their shoes off and took them into another room. The less they know about how we're operating, the... Hey.
Hey, what is it?
Hey, Duke. Take it easy. Why, nearly pulled me off my feet.
Hey, is this the place, Duke? What about it?
Ferguson, look. This is Beck's clothing store. The other place that was robbed tonight.
And that dog knows it.
He wants inside. Good work, Duke, old boy.
Hey, well, it definitely was the same man who pulled both jobs.
Yeah, and this fellow has their scent, and no mistake. Now, let's see. They obviously broke in the front door, but they didn't leave by this door, or the dog would be following the trail on from here.
Well, they probably left from the back.
Yeah, or a side window. Come on, boy. Round this way. We'll find that trail for you again.
In just a moment, we'll return for the second part of this true story of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Queen's Men. And now we return you to the Queen's Men.
Looks as if he's taking us right out of town.
Yeah, it's odd, though. You wouldn't have expected the men would go on such a hike after pulling 2 robberies. You'd think they'd want to pull out right away.
Yeah, but you don't park a strange car in a town like this without it being noticed. Say, can't you slow down a bit, Duke?
No, not him. He's really on that chase.
Look, Ferguson, I think you better go back and get the car.
All right.
I hope he stays on the main street long enough for you to catch up with us.
Well, what if he turns off?
Well, then I'll try and hold him.
Okay, look, I'll get the car, catch up with you as soon as I can.
Right. Well, you just made it in time, Ferguson. He wants to turn down this lane. How does it look? Can you follow us in the car?
Oh, it's pretty muddy.
Well, look, come along beside us until it starts to feel sticky. If he cuts across a field, you better leave the car and follow us. I'll have to hang on to him. I might need you to do some investigating.
All right. I'll do my best. You better let him continue now, Barkley. He's getting mad.
Ferguson, over here.
Okay, I'm coming.
There's been a car parked here. That's what Duke was excited about.
Was the getaway car, is it?
Yeah. You see the tire tracks?
Well, this is the end of the trail.
For the moment it is. But now we want to check these tracks with the tires on the car that we picked up tonight and make a thorough ground search of this surrounding area.
Okay, I'll put a call in then. Good word, Duke. Good boy.
Good boy.
busy night.
Yes, we certainly have, Inspector.
Now then, what have you to report?
Well, the tire tracks outside Livingston match the car owned by McKee and Cameron, just to start with.
I see.
And during the search out there, we came across these articles. A pair of pliers, a scarf, empty cigarette package, recently discarded. I'm taking them along to the lab now for fingerprint tests.
McKee and Cameron have been fingerprinted?
Yes, Inspector, so if they match...
If they match, we can definitely charge them in the morning with robbery.
Charles Henry McKee and Eric Maynard Campbell. You're both charged with unlawfully entering the premises of Harry Blakely and Thomas Beck in Livingston, Alberta, and on that occasion breaking open 2 safes and robbing them of the amount of $3,650. You are hereby committed to trial 3 weeks from this date. Bail is set at $5,000.
Busy for a few minutes, Sergeant?
No? Did you want to see me, Barkley? Come in. What's on your mind?
This Cameron McKee case.
Oh, yes. You did the preliminary work on that, didn't you? How are you coming along with your search for the money? Any luck?
None at all, Sergeant. We've reached a complete dead end. But I just heard that someone has put up bail for McKee.
Yes. He was released this morning.
I don't like the look of that, you know, Sergeant. These men are obviously experienced criminals.
Well, yes, you're right. That's why the bail was set so high.
Do you know who put up the bail?
No, but I can find out in just a minute. Hello, Blake? Sergeant Johnson here. Can you tell me who put up the bail for Charles McKee? Yes, the robbery case. Yes, I'll hold on. If they're experienced, as you say, Barkley, McKee will know better than to jump bail.
No, I'm not worried about that. We'd get him soon enough if he tried it. What I've been thinking is that these fellows never have 5,000 sitting around loose. It looks to me as though the bail money is probably the money that was stolen from Livingston.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then whoever came forward with the bail knew where to look for the money.
Yes. Yes, Blake? It was, eh? I see. Right, thanks. You may have something there after all, Barkley. They tell me it was McKee's brother who put up bail.
His brother? Why, I've been looking for him ever since the night I picked McKee and Cameron up. And McKee gave me that suspicious-sounding story about the discrepancy in the license numbers. Said the car originally belonged to his brother. I've been wanting to question him.
And what's been the difficulty?
Well, I couldn't locate him. I've checked every McKee in town. Now he apparently has been into the courthouse, planked down the $5,000, and gone.
Well, I should have an address for him over there. My guess is he's been using an assumed name. That's why you couldn't find him. But, acting as bondsman, he was forced to reveal his identity.
Yeah, that's true. Well, he'll have given an address. I think I'll get over there and look into this, Sergeant.
I'll come over with you. Now, your theory makes sense. We may want to keep an eye on this fellow.
Oh, hello, officers.
I'm Sergeant Johnson of the RCMP. This is Constable Barkley.
Well, what can I do for you?
You're the clerk who accepted the bail this morning for McKee?
Yes, Sergeant. Is there something wrong?
Well, there might be. We've been trying to dig up some information about the man who went bail, McKee's brother. We found he has several aliases and a false address.
Oh.
Now, we have a couple of leads, places where he's known to hang out, but we can't identify him.
I think I understand you. You want a description?
More than that. We've arranged with the chief for you to have the next few days off, however long it takes. We want you to come along with us and watch for this man, to point him out when you see him.
Well, I'd be sure to recognize him, Sergeant. Sure, I'd be glad to come along with you.
Good. Your substitute will be along in about half an hour. Would you come straight down to headquarters? Come to my office.
Well, I will. Hey, what's up with this fella, Sergeant?
That we don't know. But the more we hear about him, the more he appears to be implicated in the 2 robberies. If he's planning anything else, we'd like to jump the gun on him. Come along, Barkley.
Oh, Ferguson.
Are you busy, Inspector?
And none of you found anything further on McKee?
Well, I sure have, sir. I found him through the maze of aliases. He's had 3 convictions for armed robbery, all in other provinces. And apparently he just took up residence here recently.
There's no record here.
No, sir, but here's an interesting thing. Down east, one of his convictions was for robbing a furrier's.
Oh.
And for 3 months previous to that, he'd been employed by that same furrier.
Is that so?
Yeah.
Getting the job well lined up, eh?
Well, it looks that way. Incidentally, Constable Barclay and Sergeant Johnson are on his tail right now. The county clerk identified him for them this afternoon. They followed him and got his address.
Good. I hadn't received a report from
Well, they're going
them.
to stick right with him, sir. He's going to watch the place all night and record his activities. The sergeant just called in and asked me to tell you.
You sure that's the streetcar he's on, Sergeant?
Well, you saw him get on.
Yeah, but there was quite a crowd at that last stop. I wonder if he perhaps got off and gave us the slip.
No, I don't think so.
It'd be a shame to lose him after watching his place all night. Oh, but man, I'm sleepy.
Yeah, a cup of coffee would be mighty nice right now. But let's stay awake a little while longer, Barkley. I'm curious where a man like McKee would be going at 8:30 in the morning with the working crowd.
Maybe he's got a job.
Some job, but he can come up with 5,000 overnight. Streetcar stopping. Keep a sharp lookout.
Yeah.
There. That's McKee getting off, isn't it?
It sure is, and thank goodness. I had a nasty feeling we might have missed him at that last stop.
He's going down that side street.
Yeah, I think we'd be safe to pull around and tail him, Sergeant. There's lots of traffic, and he doesn't seem to be on guard.
Well, he isn't going far. What's that store he's entering?
Well, if you want to drive past it, I'll be able to read the Marchand's Furriers.
Say, you don't suppose he's going to pull a hold-up?
No, the doorman greeted him, opened the door for him, as if he knew him. It looks to me as though McKee is working there.
Marchand's Furriers.
Yes, Inspector. Barkley and I had a cup of coffee and then dropped into the shop. The doorman was very chatty. We had no difficulty in establishing that McKee is working there.
Well.
It looks as though he may have decided to go straight.
Well, I've got news for you, Sergeant. Your efforts have nipped the next McKee robbery in the bud.
Why, I don't follow you, Inspector.
No, but you followed McKee. That's the main thing. Blake, send Constable Ferguson in here with that report on McKee. Yes, McKee's brother. Thanks. When you see McKee's record, Sergeant, you'll see what I mean. These boys have Martians all lined up for their next big job.
You mean they're planning to rob the place?
That's their plan, you can be sure. And that's why the brother had to spring Charles. They've probably been planning this for months. They've had a lot of success in the past, but this time they won't get away with it.
And the inspector was right. That was the end of the McKee boys.
How'd they nab them, Sergeant?
Well, by keeping a close watch on the brother, and by careful investigation, Johnson was able to establish the exact time of the planned robbery. So when the boys turned up one night to pull the job, they walked right into our arms.
They must have been somewhat surprised.
Yeah, they certainly were. That was a bit of a gun battle. Nobody was hurt, but they shot themselves right into the big league. No more evidence was needed to have them put away for a good long rest.
All because they broke the speed limit one night when they thought no one was looking.
That's right. This was a case of the RCMP missing the man at first and finally nabbing their men.
The Queen's Men, authentic stories of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Music under the direction of Sidney Torch. Script and adaptation under the supervision of John Adaskin. Produced and directed by Harry Allen Towers.
I solemnly swear that I will faithfully, diligently, and impartially execute and perform the duties required of me as a member of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and will well and truly obey and perform all lawful orders and instructions which I shall receive as such, without fear, favor, or affection of or towards any person. So help me God.
The Queen's Men. For the first time, authentic stories of the world-famous Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Tales of men who for almost 100 years have helped to keep peace in Canada. The Queen's Men. The Queen's Men. True stories of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Names have been changed for family protection. And now transcribe The Queen's Men.
Remember that case, Inspector? Manslaughter, wasn't it?
Yes, originally hit-and-run charge.
Why was the charge changed?
Let's see. As I remember it, it was a nasty business. Man and woman walking along Highway number 3 in Nova Scotia about 3 or 4 years ago. Happened so fast, the woman could give no description at all of the vehicle, and the man was dead.
Were you on the case, Inspector?
Yeah. It sticks in my mind because there was so little to go on. At first, that is. Right after the accident.
All right, now, stand back, everyone. Well back. Edwards, get your men to keep those people back.
Yes, sir. Men, over here.
Come on. Peterson says he's dead, all right, Sergeant.
Oh, Peterson and his pre-med course. Certainly he's dead. I knew that. Did you find anything else yet?
Oh, no skid marks, unfortunately. He mustn't have even slowed down. Nothing except a few smithereens of glass. Mirror, it looks like.
Well, gather them up carefully. How's the woman?
Oh, she's incoherent. In a real state of shock.
You think she was hit at all?
No, I don't think so.
Wish that ambulance would get here. As soon as it does, we'll get these spectators on their way and do some scouting around. Amazing the fascination an accident has for people.
Excuse me, could I get through, please?
Who's that?
Doctor, perhaps?
Officer. Oh, officer, could I have a word with you?
What about? What's your business?
My name is Brown. Would you let me through, please?
All right, let this man through, will you? Come on, come on.
Have you something to do with this accident?
No, I didn't know anything about it till I just pulled up now. Are you the officer in charge?
I'm Sergeant Maynard of the RCMP. Those men over there are provincial police. Now, what is it you have to say?
Well, my name is Brown. I'm a salesman, you see, but traveling on the road all the time, I get to notice things as I drive along.
Yeah.
I'm a lady's glove.
Look, what's that got to do with what I'm doing right now?
Well, as I was going to say, a few miles back, I passed a big dump truck parked by the road without lights. A dark night tonight. I almost hit it before I saw it. Well, I kind of thought to myself, this constitutes a hazard to moving traffic.
You're right, it does. So what?
Well, I didn't stop or anything, but as I went by, I happened to take a look at the name of the truck, Barrington Transport. It said in big white letters.
Barrington Transport? You know anything about that outfit, Jacket?
It's Trans-Canada Transport, I think. They usually have a few trucks operating here in the Maritimes.
So when I saw you officers here, I thought maybe you should know about this guy before he causes an accident.
Yeah. Thank you for your information.
What kind of an accident is it?
Oh, looks like hit and run.
Say, maybe...
May we take your full name and address, Mr. Brown, in case we should want to ask you any further questions?
Why, sure thing, officer. Delighted. Anything at all I can do.
Look, what direction were you traveling, north or south?
I was coming south.
I see. How far would you say this truck was from here?
Oh, about 3 miles, I'd say.
Right. Please go and speak to that officer over there. That's Constable Edwards, and he'll write down the particulars.
Sure, I'll do that. Good luck on this case, man.
Yeah, cheery fellas, these salesmen, even in the face of death.
He was traveling south, and the hit-and-run rival was going north. So it's barely possible the man might have driven on about 5 miles and then stopped. You know, he'd be pretty shaken up. No one commits this sort of crime on purpose.
You think there's a chance, then, that
there's always a chance, Jacket. If all we have is some broken glass, we'd better look into this.
Here comes the ambulance.
Good. Edwards!
Yes, sir.
Come here a minute, will you?
I was just talking to that fellow Brown.
Yeah. We think we'll look into it. Did the woman, what's her name?
Mrs. Malley.
Was Mrs. Malley able to say what sort of vehicle it was? Truck or car?
No,
or...
unfortunately, she was so stunned she had no idea at all.
Ah, pity that. Well, you take care of the ambulance. Get these people cleared out and continue your on-the-spot investigation.
Okay, Sergeant.
Jacket and I are going on down the highway and see if we can locate that truck. Come along, Jacket.
What's the speedometer say, Sergeant? How far have we come?
Well, let's have a look. 4 5/8.
We should have passed the location of the truck then.
We'd be pretty lucky if he was still sitting there. Probably just stopped for a few minutes to collect himself.
What goes on in the mind of a driver like that, do you suppose, Sergeant?
At the time of the accident?
Yeah. He panics, certainly, but does it occur to him to stop? Does he envision the consequences if he doesn't? Does he hesitate?
Ah, darned if I know. You spend too much time looking for reasons, Jacket. It's our job to catch up with offenders, not dissect them.
Well, sometimes, though, it makes it easier to figure out what a man's going to do if you have some idea how his mind operates. What's that up ahead?
Those flares? Roadblock, I guess. I expect the commissioner set up immediate roadblocks when the report came in.
Well, no truck.
Well, now, as there's a roadblock here, we've narrowed him down anyway. Let's see if he's got through.
It's Sergeant Robson.
Robson?
That you, Sergeant Maynard? Oh, and Jacket. What's happening up the road?
Oh, quite a crowd. Ambulance just turned up.
This highway practically deserted this time of night. But as soon as there's an accident, the people appear in droves.
Yeah. Tell me, Sergeant, you let a truck through here?
Truck? No. Half a dozen cars, that's all. And giving them a good going over, but no truck.
Then if he didn't pass you and he's not anywhere in this 5-mile stretch of highway, he must have turned down some side road or into a lane.
Oh, that's a strange thing for a trans-country transport to do, Sergeant. They stick to the highway.
That's right. No reason to turn off on this stretch of highway particularly. Well, thanks, Sergeant. We'd better get back down the road, then report to headquarters. Now, here are the fragments of glass picked up at the scene of the accident, Inspector.
Mirror, eh?
Yes, sir. On examination of the spot in daylight, first thing this morning, more glass was found.
Any other clues lying about?
No, sir. Nothing but the glass. Now, the coroner states that from the nature of the injuries sustained by the deceased, this James Halliday, it seems probable that his head was struck by some part of the vehicle. This all seems to point to the possibility of a projecting rear vision mirror.
Yes. Yes, it does.
Gives us something to look for on the vehicle.
Well, broken rear vision mirror can be replaced.
Yes, of course, sir. I've assigned a detail to check all service stations and garages for that eventuality.
And, what about this Barrington transport?
Well, Constable Jacket began an investigation early this morning to obtain information about which of their trucks are working in the district. He had an interview planned with the local representative of the company to check the authorized movement of the line's vehicle.
What do you think, Sergeant? Think there's much indication that the driver of the truck is our man?
No indication at all, Inspector, I'm afraid. Just that the driver was breaking one law in parking without lights. Maybe he'd break another, that's all. And, of course, having nothing more to go on...
Yes, of course. There aren't many leads in this case.
No. And the woman is of no use whatever. Can't even remember whether it was a car or a truck.
Is she Halliday's wife?
No, he wasn't married. They were good friends, though. She's pretty broken up. You know, hit and run is a brutal thing, Inspector. Little though we have to go on, I'm determined...
Excuse me.
Look, that may be Constable Jacket, sir, reporting about his interview with the trucking company. I told him I'd be in your office.
Perhaps you'd better take it then.
All right, thanks. Inspector Templeton's office, Sergeant Maynard speaking.
Hello, Sergeant. It's Jacket.
Yeah?
Shall I come up there with my report? Or...
Yeah, do that, but tell me briefly what you found out.
Well, Barrington say they have 2 trucks operating in this district, both on the road last night.
Yes?
I've called in on one of the 2 drivers, a fellow named Barrett. He seems to be in the clear. He has proof that he was on Highway 1 last night. His rear vision mirror is intact and certainly doesn't look as though it had been newly replaced, so he's out.
Oh, what about the other one?
Well, here's where we get interesting. The driver's name is Harry Preston. He was presumably on Highway 2 last evening with a run scheduled for the town of Sinclair.
Yeah?
Well, we can't locate him, Sergeant. Can't find him or his truck this morning. He never did get to Sinclair and didn't report back to the company.
Say, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think so too, Sergeant.
Look, you better proceed back to headquarters and we'll plan the next step.
Right, Sergeant.
Inspector, it looks as though a casual lead may have started us in the right direction. If the indications are correct, we should have this case wound up in a day or so.
In just a moment, we'll return for the second part of this true story of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Queen's Men. And now we return you to the Queen's Men.
This looks like a house up ahead. 38, is it?
Yes, Sergeant.
Pull into the driveway.
Right.
Depends on what his wife can tell us, of course. But a truck and driver can't disappear entirely from this kind of country.
Want me to come in with you?
Yeah, keep track of what's said.
Well, I hope the wife is home.
We'll soon find her if she isn't. What did the officials at the Barrington office have to say about this man?
Who, Preston? Oh, they said he was a reliable driver. He's never failed to deliver before, nor has he vanished like this.
Anything else? How about his personal character?
Well, they didn't seem too enthusiastic about him, but he did his job satisfactorily. They couldn't quite believe he'd pull a hit and run.
It's hard to believe that of anyone.
Yeah, you're right, Sergeant. This is the sort of crime I don't like. In all probability, there's no criminal intent. Just a mistake. A bad mistake, and then panic.
Yes?
Oh, good morning. Are you Mrs. Preston?
Who are you?
Sergeant Maynard of the RCMP, ma'am. This is Constable Jacket.
How do you do?
Yes, I'm Mrs. Preston. What do you want?
Well, we'd like to make some inquiries about your husband.
Why? What's Harry done?
Oh, we're not at all sure he's done anything, Mrs. Preston. We're just checking.
Well, you better come in, I guess.
Thank you.
Come on in the living room.
Oh, thanks. Is your husband at home by any chance?
No, he's not at home. Sit down.
Thank you.
Thanks.
When did you last see him, Mrs. Preston? Look, it'll be better for everyone if you answer our questions, ma'am. You see, if he's guilty of anything, well, we'll find him in the long run. If he's innocent, then you'll do him no harm in being honest.
I haven't seen him since after supper last night. He hasn't been home all night. I'm so worried. I just can't imagine. Well, he's never stayed away all night before.
I see.
Except when he was on an all-night run, but he always told me when he was. He was supposed to be home by midnight last night.
And can you tell us what occurred before he left last night? What was his state of mind?
Not sure what you mean.
Well, I mean, had you had a quarrel?
No. Well, not exactly a quarrel. I did tell him he shouldn't have another drink when he was on a drive.
He was drinking?
Well, yes, he was, officer. He was mad because another driver got a raise, and he asked for one and didn't get it.
And you say he's never stayed away before without telling you?
No, never.
Now then, Mrs. Preston, have you any idea at all where he might be?
Why, no, officer. If I knew, I'd get in touch with him.
Well, how about his friends? Have you tried contacting any of them?
Yes, I phoned everyone I know. No one's even heard from him. He just seems to have vanished.
I see. Well, then, that'll be all for now, Mrs. Preston. We appreciate your cooperation, and if you hear anything further, I wish you'd get in touch with us.
All right.
Your attention now, men. It's approximately here that the truck was reported seen parked without lights. 3 miles south of here is the location of the accident. About 2 miles north was our roadblock. Now, he didn't pass the roadblock, so it would appear that he turned off the highway somewhere in this 5-mile stretch. You get me?
Yeah.
All right. Now, listen. Our job is to scour this area with a fine-tooth comb. Watch for tire tracks. Remember, of course, that every farmer in this area owns a truck. But you've all been given a pattern of the Barrington truck tire marks, so check them carefully.
Okay.
All right. Just a minute. Investigate every farmhouse in the area. If a strange truck was on anyone's premises, they should know. If he sought refuge with a friend around here, they may try to cover for him. So question everyone thoroughly, and remember this one thing. The longer the man is at large, the better chance he has of eluding us. So get to work, and work fast. Disperse, men.
Okay.
Jacket.
Yes, Sergeant?
Wheel your horse around and come with me. We're going to check the bush areas and gravel pits. Any of the places where a truck may be hidden. Hold still there, Beauty. I know. You're anxious to start the hunt. There we are. Let's go. We'll cut across this field, Jacket.
I'm Constable Edwards of the RCMP. I'm investigating the accident that occurred on the highway last evening.
That hit and run. Anything I can do, Constable?
Are you acquainted with a man named Harry Preston?
Preston? No. Is he the guy that did it?
Well, that we don't know yet. Did you hear a truck on your property last evening?
You think you hit him with a truck?
Well, we don't know anything yet, just investigating. Would you mind showing me over your property?
No, sir, officer. I don't know a thing about it.
This is quite a long lane leading up to your house. A truck could enter and park without your hearing in it, couldn't it?
Well, could, I suppose.
What are these tire marks here? Do you own a truck?
Yep. Drove it up the lane just this morning.
You see, you have 2 sons.
Yep. They do most of the farming these days.
Perhaps they're acquainted with Harry Preston.
Not that I know of.
I'd like to talk to them.
Oh, sure, officer.
Marshal, take a ride up to the bush there and give it a careful going over.
Yes?
Oh, I'm sorry to bother you, ma'am, but, is your husband working in the fields?
Yes, he's down in the east pasture.
Well, would you direct me there, please? And on our way, I'd like you to think back and recall whether you heard a truck on your property last night.
You looking for me, Robson?
Yes, Sergeant. Oh, there, Elmer. I thought I'd find you around here.
Did you locate something?
I think so, Sergeant. Farmer over on the next concession, name's Cardney. I think he knows the truck driver, Harry Preston.
Well, how come? Did he admit knowing him?
No, said he didn't. But I thought he was lying, acted nervous and wanted to get away. I checked truck marks in his lane. They're smeared, but they seem to match the Barrington truck. I have a couple of men watching his place now.
Good work. I'll come along and question him myself. While I'm doing so, you give his property a good going over. Jacket?
No sign of the truck yet, eh, Sergeant?
No. You'd wonder a man could hide a truck that size.
Oh, Sergeant!
Come on, Jacket.
You better come over here, Sergeant. Tire marks.
What?
Leading into the bush here.
Robson, go on back and watch that farmer. Keep a constant eye on him, but keep your men concealed. I'm going to investigate Jacket's tire marks.
Yes, Sergeant.
Located in bush back of burnt-out barn on Highway 2, 3 3/8 miles south of last night's roadblock. 7
you, Sergeant.
You'd better tell the truth, Cardney. We've located Harry Preston's truck, and it's only a matter of time before we find Preston himself. You'll be guilty of obstructing justice if you have any knowledge of the man and withhold it from the police.
Look, I don't want to get into any trouble, but I don't want to get Harry in trouble either.
Then you do know him.
Oh, yes, I know him. But I didn't know anything about the accident, honest. Not until I read it in the papers this morning.
When did you last see Harry Preston?
Last night. Last night he dropped in here just for a visit, he said.
Uh-huh. Did he have his truck with him?
He said he parked it behind the barn. I kind of thought that was a funny place for him to park his truck, and I said so.
What did he say?
Nothing. He acted kind of funny and said he was tired. Said he only dropped in to have a little rest before going on to Sinclair.
I see. Did he appear to have been drinking?
Oh, no, he was cold sober. I noticed his hand was kind of shaking, though, now you mention it.
Uh-huh. What time did he arrive here?
Oh, I didn't notice exactly, but it was after 10, I know, because I went down to the chicken house at 10, and it was after that.
The accident occurred at 9:20, Sergeant.
Yeah. What time did he leave?
About an hour later.
Did he say where he was going?
Said he was going on to Sinclair to deliver his load.
Anything else?
No, not that I can remember.
Well, please try to remember every word that was said, Mr. Cardney.
Well, he didn't say anything else. I know he didn't, because his wife's been phoning here, and I've been trying to think.
All right. Men, we got to start a systematic search of the woods and all barns and outbuildings. He's obviously on foot. He can't be far from here. We've got to get him before nightfall.
Sergeant Maynard asked me if I'd come back and report our progress, Inspector, and asked for another search patrol to be sent out immediately.
They're already being organized. I figured he'd want more men. Now the truck's been found, it's a case of a thorough ground search.
Yes, sir.
The men will be ready in 15 minutes. You can lead them back to Maynard. Meantime, I've just received the report of the investigation of the truck.
Oh? What did they find, sir?
Here are the photographs. You'll note the badly smashed rear vision mirror.
Oh, it sure is. Whole thing seems badly bent as well.
Yes. It really hit something with tremendous force. Now, the laboratory tests reveal particles of blood and hair. The test as to whether it's human hasn't come through yet. But from the height of the mirror, it's obvious a human was struck.
Yes, I see what you mean.
What with the circumstances, truck hidden and the driver apparently eluding us, it points pretty definitely to Preston.
Well, now it's just a case of...
Excuse me. Yes? Oh, they are. Good. Your men are ready, Jacketh. Good luck.
Yeah, the footprints match Preston's shoe, all right. Now then, the footprints indicate that he entered this section of bush right here. Constable Haley has conducted a search around the fringe of the bush, and there are no footprints to indicate he came out anywhere.
Then he's in there, Sergeant.
He's in there, all right. Corporal Stevens, you remain here with your group. We'll spread along this 100-foot front. Edwards?
Yes, Sergeant.
Take your men around to the west.
Right.
Peterson, you cover the east, and Jackett the south.
Yes, Sergeant.
Now look, we'll form a large circle and gradually condense the circle as we move in. I doubt he'll be armed. The only weapons you'll need to carry are your knives and wire cutters. Now cut your way directly through, no matter what obstacle, so that we don't have to break in the circle. Right. No talk. Move as quietly as you can. The closer we can move in, the easier he'll be to take. All right, now start spreading out. This is the final round in this case.
Not a sign yet. And the bush is getting a bit thicker here.
Only hope we can find our own way out.
Wait a minute. I think I heard something.
It came from the right, over there.
All right. Quietly now.
Just a minute.
You.
Yeah? What do you want?
What are you doing in this part of the woods?
All right. Just looking after my tracks. Who are you fellas? You're scaring away all the game.
I'm Sergeant Robson of the RCMP. Can you identify yourself?
Sure. Everybody knows me around these parts. I'm Husing, Bill Husing.
Never heard of you? I know this area pretty well.
Well, I got a letter from my daughter. Arrived only this morning. I'll be here. Hi. Right here in my pocket.
Oh, let's have a look at it. Dear Pop, not heard from me from some time. Michael's sick. Better now. Oh, my love, Millie. Well, that satisfies me. By the way, have you seen any strangers around here?
No, officer. Only you.
Hey, look, Sergeant. Isn't that somebody in that clearing just ahead?
I didn't see anybody. Wait a minute. Maybe you're right. I just saw something move.
Yeah.
Quietly now. You take the left, I'll take the right. We'll creep up on him.
Right.
Is there anyone there? I said, is there anyone there? Come out.
Your name, Harry Preston?
What's it to do with you what my name is?
I'm Constable Jacket of the RCMP. I want a word with you.
If you want me, you better come and get me.
All right, Sergeant, jump him.
Take your hands off me. You get nothing on me. You take...
Nice work, Sergeant.
All right, Preston. You better come quietly.
So they moved in, and of course they got him.
And the only clues were a handful of broken mirror pieces and a salesman who kept his eyes open.
Nothing much to go on. But that seems to be the pattern for the RCM police. It's no wonder the force holds the reputation it does the world over.
Yep. I'd certainly hate to be on the other side to us. Well, we'd better get back on the job, Inspector, if we're to keep that reputation.
Yeah.
The Queen's Men, authentic stories of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Music under the direction of Sidney Torch. Script and adaptation under the supervision of John Adaskin. Produced and directed by Harry Allen Towers.
I solemnly swear that I will faithfully, diligently, and impartially execute and perform the duties required of me as a member of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and will well and truly obey and perform all lawful orders and instructions which I shall receive as such, without fear, favor, or affection, of or towards any person. So help me God.
The Queen's Men. For the first time, authentic stories of the world-famous Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Tales of men who for almost 100 years have helped to keep peace in Canada. The Queen's Men. The Queen's Men. True stories of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Names have been changed for family protection. And now transcribe The Queen's Men.
Well, how do your new recruits look, Inspector?
I'm always amazed the way most of the men turn out. Looking at that bunch today, you mightn't suspect there'd be a dozen good investigators out of them finally. But there will be.
Always on the lookout for investigators, eh, Inspector?
Well, I remember our situation during the war, when the force was really suffering from a loss of trained investigators. Left to join the armed forces, you know. Left us pretty badly crippled.
Yeah, I guess so.
You may not have the same recollection of it as I do. I was in the Missing Persons C Division in Vancouver. As you know, a Disappearance Act sets in operation a tremendous portion of the machinery of the RCMP.
But the force did pretty well at keeping up with missing persons during the war years, though, doesn't it, Inspector?
Yes, it did surprisingly well. I remember a case that came along at the very worst possible time. I wasn't on the case myself, had to pull out shortly after the initial report. But I remember getting the story roughed in later.
Missing persons case?
Started out that way. Looked routine at first. But it turned out to have very dramatic developments. I was with Assistant Commissioner Tucker in his office at headquarters the morning he lost 3 of his best investigators all at one blow. He was feeling pretty disconsolate, to say the least.
War's a dreadful thing, Inspector. Dreadful waste.
Well, now, sir, those 3 men know how to look after themselves. They'll come out of it all right.
Oh, I have no doubt they will, but what I mean is it's a waste of ability, of training. They're trained for private investigation here in Western Canada. They know the people, their attitudes, they know the terrain. They're thoroughly trained for exactly the job they've been doing. In the Army, they'll be valuable, all right. But think of the time wasted teaching them new tricks, and then teaching them the old ones again after it's all over.
Yes, that's so.
Of course, I'm being selfish, I realize that. What I'm really worried about is how my division is going to get along without them.
Well, at any rate, your dogs aren't volunteering for war duty.
If they could talk, you'd be sure they'd volunteer, all right. Our mounted police dogs would be welcome, too, I dare say. Well, Inspector, you'll be heading east in a few days.
Yes, there's a job waiting for me. Then I'll be back. I hope things are going to be quiet around here for you until you get some new men.
Doubt I'll get any. All the division are short-staffed, you know. You'll just have to make the best of it, I'm afraid. But if there has to be some excitement, I hope it's a nice, simple robbery or attempted assault. Anything but a missing person.
And there's been quite an outbreak of disappearances since the war started.
Yes, I've been looking into the reasons for that. One of them is... excuse me. Tucker speaking.
Good morning. Is that Assistant Commissioner Tucker?
Yes, speaking.
Well, Commissioner, this is George Hayes Telford, the solicitor.
Oh, yes, Mr. Telford. One of your clients in trouble?
I think he might be. He might be in pretty bad trouble, Commissioner. You see, 5 days ago, he mysteriously disappeared.
Oh, disappeared, did he? Now, Mr. Telford, are you sure he's to be classed among missing persons? What I mean is, have you looked into this yourself? Have you satisfied yourself he's not off on a fishing trip or on a bender?
Oh, neither of those, Commissioner. Say, you don't sound very happy.
Well, I'm not. I'd like to have a good talk with you before we go to work on this. See if there isn't some simple way of tracing him.
That would certainly suit me. I don't know the man at all. I received a notification of his disappearance from his wife.
Have you acted for them in the past?
Wrote his will a couple of years ago, that's all.
Then if you know him as casually as that, I doubt you can throw much light on his disappearance. Maybe you'd better send his wife in to see me, and we'll start from there.
I'll do that, Commissioner. How soon do you want to see her?
Right away, by all means. Send her in this afternoon.
Right. Goodbye, sir.
Goodbye.
Well, that's a tough break, Commissioner.
Sometimes I think I'm jinxed. Well, I mustn't complain. It's our job, Inspector, and short-staffed or no, we've got to do the job the best way we can. Please sit down, Mrs. Weeks.
Thank you.
You must be very upset, I know.
I'll say I'm upset, Commissioner.
We'll do everything in our power to locate your husband. Now, there probably isn't too much to worry about. We've found there are countless things that can happen, cause a great deal of worry, but in nearly all cases, we find people safe and unharmed.
Well, just so you find out who he's with. I don't care how safe he is. I just want to know if he's run off with some woman, that's all.
You think there's a possibility of that, Mrs. Weeks?
There's a possibility of anything with that man.
I mean, Is he in the habit of, would you say, had he some lady friends?
I never know who his friends are. All I know is he can't be trusted.
I see. Has your husband ever run afoul of the law, Mrs. Weeks?
Not that I know of. Although it's a mystery to me, he hasn't.
Why did you say that? Has he been carrying on any activities that would suggest breaking of the law?
Commissioner, I never did know what his activities were. He's always so busy lying to me that I can't sift out the truth from the lies anymore.
Well, now, I'd better start from the beginning and get some of the background. His name is Alfred Linwood Weeks. And your address?
150 North Street.
How long have you lived there?
17 years, ever since we were married. They've been 17 miserable years, Commissioner, and I should be glad I'm rid of him. I just want to know who he's with.
Excuse me a minute.
Yes, Commissioner?
I'd like to see Detective Corporal Hayward in my office right away.
Corporal's down at provincial headquarters right now, Commissioner. Said he'd be about half an hour.
Oh, I see. Well, as soon as he comes back, send him in here, will you?
Yes, sir.
Thanks. Now then, Mrs. Weeks, tell me some more about your husband.
Sorry, I wasn't there when you wanted me, Commissioner.
Well, I'll give you the details, Corporal. It's a missing persons case, and I'm putting you on it. A man called Weeks, Alfred Linwood Weeks. Ever hear of him?
Well, I don't think so, sir.
You might have a look in the files to start. He sounds pretty unsavory, from his wife's version at any rate.
Well, when did he disappear, Commissioner?
5 days ago. Reason I called you, I wanted you to hear her version of him. Not much love lost there, I can tell you.
Possible desertion.
I think so. Well, here's the outline. He's been working for Jordan's Electric for 17 years, since his marriage. Has lived in the same house here in Vancouver all that time. Always takes his vacation first 2 weeks in July. So 5 days ago, on July 1st, he and his wife set out by car. Left about noon. And that evening arrived at a farm owned by friends of theirs, just outside the town of Rodney.
Where were they heading?
Yes, that's an interesting point. I was getting to that. Mrs. Weeks said their destination was not disclosed to her by her husband. He merely said it was a surprise. What do you make of that, Hayward?
Well, just offhand, looks as though he may have planned to disappear and wanted to keep the end of the trail a blank.
Just what occurred to me. Well, the people at the farm, name of Anderson, put them up for the night. They didn't have much room, so it was decided Mrs. Weeks and Mrs. Anderson would share the one bedroom. Anderson would sleep in the granary, and Weeks on the living room sofa. They sat up quite late, talking, and they went to their respective beds. Mrs. Weeks says that about 6 the next morning, she thought she heard someone attempt to start their car without success. And when they arose, Weeks was gone. His car was still in the lane.
And what'd they do then?
Sat around for 4 days waiting. And yesterday, Mrs. Weeks returned to Vancouver by bus. Today, she contacted her lawyer, and he made the report to me.
And there's been no word at all from Weeks?
No word. And she seems to have mighty little information about his activities.
Well, I'd better start with Anderson, don't you think, Commissioner?
Yes, I'd say so. But check the files first and see if you can dig up anything about Weeks. Use whatever men and resources you need, Hayward, but try to crack this case as fast as you can.
Yeah, I know your situation, Commissioner.
Well, we have to tighten our schedule. Speed up on everything.
Well, I'll work around the clock if necessary.
And keep me posted, will you?
Constable Barlow, come in.
I've been through the fingerprints in the photo file, Corporal. Had a couple of the men double-checking. Can't find a thing on Weeks.
I don't seem to have anything here either.
And yet, you know, that name sounds familiar. You know how you learn to register a name with a vague connection sometimes?
You got some kind of connection in mind?
Well, I seem to have something.
Well, it might give us an idea of which direction to start looking in.
Well, just as soon as I get close, I lose it. Weeks?
Well, we'd better not waste time on it. Time is valuable these days. We'd better head for the town of Rodney and, RCMP headquarters. Detective Corporal Hayward.
It's Detective Miller of the City Police, Corporal.
Oh, yes, I've been trying to reach you.
I got your message. I went straight to the files, and I have some information on Weeks. Don't know how valuable it is to you, but...
Got something? Well, good.
My investigation shows that Weeks has been strongly suspected of issuing a worthless check.
Bad check, eh?
Check. That's it.
Go on, Miller.
Well, he was instructed last week by one of our men to report here at the station on July 7th. That's tomorrow. At which time we plan to have a witness available for identification. Now, that's about all we've got at the moment, Corporal.
Well, it's better than nothing. Gives us a good indication of the kind of man we're after. I'll send someone down to see you. Get all the details, and right now I'm heading out of town.
Well, good luck, Corporal.
Thanks. I'll get in touch with you tomorrow. Perhaps by then you'll have turned something up.
We'll do our best, Corporal.
Goodbye. You know something about that check, Barlow?
Well, I just heard about it. Detective Simmons was the one who got the first lead.
Then contact Simmons right away. And tell him to get down and see Miller of the city police and fill in the story for him.
Right.
Then meet me out front in 10 minutes. I'll have a car waiting headed for Rodney. Now then, Mr. Anderson, you say you were not very well acquainted with Weeks.
No, I hardly knew the man. Didn't like him especially either.
Yet you invited him to be a guest in your home.
Well, they came dropping in on us. We like to be neighborly, you know. Say, why don't you officers come on in the house? I'll have the wife make a cup of tea.
Well, thanks. We'd like to, but we can't take the time right now. I'd just like to know how you became acquainted with Mr. and Mrs. Weeks.
Well, we met Alf alone first. He came by one day asking about old Ollie Marchek down the other side of town.
Oh, what about Marchek?
Well, he's a real old guy. One of these old-age pensioners. Lonely old guy, you know. Never seemed to have any friends. And when Weeks came along and said he was an insurance investigator...
What did he say he was?
Insurance investigator. So there might be a big legacy in store for Ollie. Only he didn't want to get old Ollie's hopes up. So he was investigating him through his friends. Well, like I say, Ollie never had many friends. And we knew him a bit. So we told Weeks what we could about him.
So he told you he was an insurance investigator?
Sure. Well, wasn't he?
Well, not to our knowledge. You taking all this down, Barlow?
Yes, Corporal.
Now, Mr. Anderson, what kind of questions did Weeks ask you about this Ollie Marchek?
Oh, all kinds of questions. How he lived, what he did, what time he went in and out. Funny kind of questions.
Yoo-hoo, Arnold.
Oh, there's the wife.
Are those men you're with mounted?
Yes, Ellie. Nothing to be afraid of.
Oh, I'm not afraid. It's just that they're wanted on the phone. Vancouver's calling.
Hello? Hayward here.
It's Miller of the city police, Corporal.
Yeah? Well, how'd you find me?
Your man Simmons told me I could reach you there. We've dug up something further. I thought you might like to know about it while you're still in Rodney.
Well, let's have it.
Well, it might be just coincidence, but we've located a soldier from Camp Bartlett who says there's a fellow there been trying to persuade him to assist in a robbery out there in Rodney.
A robbery? Well, did he say who they were going to rob?
Well, of course, he denies any connection with it at all. Just that he was approached about it. Says he turned down the offer. Claims it was to rob some old-age pensioner out there.
Marchek?
What's that?
Did he say the old man's name was Marchek?
No. He didn't give his name. As I said, maybe just a coincidence.
No, I don't think so. I think the trail is narrowing. Where's the soldier now?
He's back at camp. He made his confession last month when he was picked up for disorderly conduct.
Well, let's hope we can get a hold of him again. And thanks for your assistance, Miller. I think we're onto something bigger than just a missing person.
In just a moment, we'll return for the second part of this true story of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Queen's Men. And now we return you to the Queen's Men.
Sorry to keep you waiting, Barlow.
That's all right, sir.
I can see you now. Come on in.
Thanks.
Sit down.
Corporal Hayward asked me to come in and make my report to you before joining him again at Rodney.
He sent you up to Camp Bartlett to question that soldier, didn't he?
Yes, sir. The corporal is staying right there in Rodney, questioning the residents and seeing what he can pick up.
Well, between you, you've picked up an amazing amount in 3 days. What about this soldier now?
Well, his name is Wilkins. I think he's telling a true story, Commissioner. First of all, he claimed that the man who approached him about the robbery was not called Weeks.
He wasn't?
But he was obviously using an assumed name. Wilkins identified this photograph of Weeks as the same man.
Let's see it. Where'd you get this picture, Barlow?
Got it from Mrs. Weeks before going up to camp.
Well, that was a good piece of work. Now, this soldier, Wilkins, does he say why it was that Weeks chose him as a prospective partner in crime? Were they friends?
No, but they'd been introduced. Wilkins once did a short stretch for robbery, but claims he's now going straight. I think he is. However, it gave Weeks the idea of a possible association.
I see.
He says Weeks had the robbery well planned, knew the old man's every habit, and said all Wilkins would have to do was sit in a car outside the house and keep watch, while he, Weeks, would go inside and rob old Marchek of his life savings.
Well, now, I have your first report here. Apparently, Weeks was posing as an insurance investigator and making plenty of inquiries about the old man.
Yes, sir.
So, I guess your next step is Ollie Marchek.
That's right, sir. I believe Corporal Hayward is keeping an eye on him, finding out what he can from the local residents, and plans to interview him when I get back to Rodney.
Then you'll want to be going. Goodbye. Good luck.
Barlow?
Yes, sir?
Slow down at the bend.
Right, Corporal.
That's Marchek's house up the road there.
Not much of a house, is it? Doesn't look as though it's worth robbing.
Well, it's my guess Weeks falls into the cowards class. He'd rather deal with a helpless old man for smaller returns than pick on someone his own size.
Yes, I guess you're right. Did you ever see such mud?
Yeah, this clay is plenty bad when there's been the kind of rains that we've had this season. Yeah, we'd have been stuck just outside of town if we brought the car.
You didn't get a chance to tell me the result of your investigations the last couple of days, Corporal.
Well, I didn't get a thing on Weeks. No one seems to have heard of him except the Andersons.
And nobody's seen him this past week.
No, not a sign of a stranger. But I did get something of interest from the local hardware merchant. It says that Ollie Marchek bought a shotgun from him last year, and that on the night of July 2nd of this year, that's the day Weeks disappeared, Marchek returned the gun to him, saying he could never learn to shoot it.
Just last week, huh? The second.
But the interesting thing is, quite aside from the timing, that the gun showed signs of having been recently fired, and the stock was damaged.
You don't say. And yet the old man said he couldn't fire it.
Well, that's what he said. Well, here we are. Marchek should be in at this time of day. Apparently his habits never vary.
Except, perhaps, on the 2nd of July. Well, let's find out, Corporal.
No, officer. I know nothing of this man. What is his name?
Weeks. Alfred Weeks.
I keep to myself. I like others to do the same. I wish I could help you with whatever it is you are searching for, but as I cannot, you will perhaps excuse me. I plan to do some gardening.
Well, we're sorry to keep you from your gardening, Mr. Marchek, but there are a few more questions.
But I told you, I know nothing.
I'm told that you had some windows broken in your house recently.
Windows? Why, yes.
How did they get broken?
I don't know, officer. It happened one day while I was in town. When I returned, they were broken. That's all I know. What can broken windows have
And
to
you
do
have
with...
no idea how they were broken?
No. No idea.
When were they broken?
Oh, it was sometime last month, I think.
Or last week?
Perhaps. Well, I think it was before.
The carpenter in town said he replaced the windows for you on July 3rd, last Wednesday.
Oh. Yes, well, it was last week.
Do you own a shotgun, Mr. Marchek?
No, officer, I have no gun.
You did own a shotgun, though, at one time.
Yes, but It was stolen last winter.
Stolen? I see. You didn't report its theft to the police?
No.
Nor your broken windows?
No, I did not want to bother the police.
Well, then, we won't keep you any longer now, Mr. Marchek. You've been very helpful. Thank you. Come along, Barlow.
What's the idea, Corporal? You were just starting to get somewhere with him.
I've already got there, I think, Barlow.
You think then that...
Yes, that Marchek murdered Weeks.
He did seem pretty scared.
And that false statement about the shotgun seems to indicate pretty strongly that he has something to hide. That and not reporting the broken windows to the authorities. That kind of vandalism is always reported, unless there's good reason.
So, what's your plan now?
Well, next we find the body. If I'm right, that is. We'll keep watch on the place until 5 o'clock. He goes into town then for his mail. The mail clerk says that all he ever gets is his monthly pension check, but that he calls in every day just in hope.
Sad thing, that.
Yes, it is. Well, as soon as he's out of sight, we'll look the property over. Doesn't take long to spot a fresh grave. Well, Barlow, there's our man.
I'm afraid so. Nasty feeling sometimes, isn't it? When we meet with a final success.
Shot through the head. I have no doubt he asked for it, but it's murder nonetheless.
Shall we pick up Marchek at the post office?
No, I'll wait for him here. He'll be back. You better get into town, though, and notify headquarters to take care of the body.
You sure you don't want me to stay around, in case you have trouble with Marchek?
No, I won't have any trouble with him. I think he'll make a full statement.
Well, Corporal, you have my congratulations. I don't believe there's another case on record of the location of a missing person and the solving of a murder in such a short period of time.
Thanks, sir. Oh, I had fine assistance from the men and the city police.
That's Marchek's statement you have there, is it?
Yes. I had no difficulty in getting it, once he knew we'd found the body. Now, the way he tells it is about 6:30 on the morning of July the 2nd, someone began throwing stones through his windows and threatening him with various forms of punishment if he didn't open his door.
I believe Barlow said one of the stones struck him and bruised him badly.
Yeah, and of course he was badly frightened. He picked up the shotgun as he saw his assailant attempting to enter the house through the side window. Without a thought, he fired at the man's head as it appeared in the opening, and the force of the shot forced the intruder backwards.
Then he went outside to investigate.
Not immediately. He was frozen with terror and didn't know whether the man had an accomplice. He remained inside for about a half an hour and then went out and found Weeks dead outside the window.
It's a pretty shocking thing for a decent living old man.
Yes, and he's been living in fear ever since. Seems even relieved that the suspense is over. He dug a shallow grave. Didn't even know enough to disguise it. And went about his business.
He offered no resistance to arrest, I suppose.
No, none at all. You know, sir, the evidence all supports Marchek's contention that he killed in self-defense. That Weeks was entering his home with the avowed intention of robbing him of his meager life savings.
Yeah, there are good grounds for pleading self-defense.
Being old and infirm, he had no way of resisting other than by the use of a shotgun.
However, the matter should have been reported immediately to the police.
Yeah, that's so, of course.
The law of protecting one's property is clear on this point, but Marchek made every effort to conceal the fact that he shot and killed a man. Well, now, Corporal, let's not waste our time with a projected trail this morning. Marchek will be dealt with fairly in due time. Meanwhile, there's a war on.
Yes, sir. Detective Corporal Haywood really had a grand slam that time. A fine investigator, top-notch.
What about the old man?
Marchek? Well, after due and careful consideration of all the evidence, the Attorney General directed that Marchek be charged with manslaughter.
Manslaughter, huh? How'd he make out?
Well, as I recall, due to the age of the accused and the circumstances under which Weeks met his death, the charge was
later dismissed. The whole affair had quite an effect, I think, on criminals who were eyeing old-age pension as a source of easy money.
I should think it would have.
And this was done at a critical period in the force, when the added demands of wartime regulations plus depleted ranks made one proud of the achievements of every officer.
The Queen's Men, authentic stories of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Music under the direction of Sidney Torch. Script and adaptation under the supervision of John Adaskin. Produced and directed by Harry Allen Towers.
I solemnly swear that I will faithfully, diligently, and impartially execute and perform the duties required of me as a member of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and will well and truly obey and perform all lawful orders and instructions which I shall receive as such, without fear, favor, or affection, of or towards any person. So help me God.
The Queen's Men. For the first time, authentic stories of the world-famous Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Tales of men who for almost 100 years have helped to keep peace in Canada. The Queen's Men. The Queen's Men. True stories of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Names have been changed for family protection. And now transcribe The Queen's Men.
So my little nephew says, what if you haven't got any clue at all to a murder? Where do you start?
Well, how did you answer that, Sergeant?
I explained that there's always some kind of a clue. There's always something.
Yeah, I guess so. You know, I never run into one yet that didn't present something to go on.
Yes, Sergeant, well, that's a kind of good question. What, if there weren't any clues, where would you start?
Guess I'll have to look that one up in the manual.
Reason I ask, you remember Constable Henry and that murder case of his out in Alberta?
No, what case do you mean, Bob?
Well, as I remember hearing it, there was one murder with not a single clue to start with.
Oh? How did it go?
Constable told me about it when he was visiting our headquarters a couple of years ago. I recall it because it looked so hopeless. Nowhere to start. Not sure if I remember how he handled every step of it, but...
Well, let's hear about the murder without any clues. Where did he start?
He started by being pretty generally bored. He was stationed out in the ranch country where all that ever happened was a bit of cattle thieving. Constable Henry was a man of action, and after a couple of months of inactivity...
I tell you, boys, if something doesn't turn up soon, just anything with a little life to... I'm fed up playing nursemaid to a team of horses and straightening out the quarrels of a bunch of bush sodbusters.
Constable Henry here, he figures he joined the force for a life of solid adventure, and it's gone and let him down. What is it in particular you'd like to occur, Constable?
Like I said, just something with some life to it. I don't mind telling you, men, I'm bored.
Why, that's pretty near treason. Who we got here?
Excuse me busting in. Only... officer, can Can I talk to you a minute?
Certainly.
My name's Charlie Underhill. I've just ridden in 30 miles from Aiken. Hey, listen, something awful's happened. Oh, dear. Do you mind if I sit down?
No, help yourself. What do you mean, Mr. Underhill? What's happened?
They found the head of a dead man back at my place this morning.
What?
Yes, sir, right on my property, just the head. I saw it. Oh, it was awful. I figured I'd better ride over pronto and let you know. I don't want to get mixed up in no murder.
Now, let's have this story straight. Who found it?
A friend of mine, Fred Jakes. He was hunting for turkey nests, Sergeant. Are you, Sergeant?
No, Constable. This is Constable Henry you've been talking to.
Oh, well, howdy. I'm glad to meet you. Yeah. Well, I don't mean I'm glad. I wish I didn't have to get mixed up in this at all. You know, you fellas, you start getting suspicious of everybody and asking a lot of questions.
Now, look, hold on. We have a lot of questions to ask. You're right about that. But we're not suspicious of you just because this was discovered on your property. Not unless you start acting suspicious. Now, you say your friend was looking for turkey nests.
Yes, sir. It looked like the turkeys had scratched up this head.
Did anyone recognize the features?
No, nobody knows them, and there's no one missing around our way. Gee, that face sure looked awful. We figured the body must be around somewhere.
You didn't change anything or dig for the body?
I'll say now, we didn't touch a thing. No, sir. We figured it was a job for the police.
There was nothing else around?
Nope, nothing, no. That is, nothing but a black cap all covered with grease that my young brother Pete picked up a few weeks ago. Oh, he's wearing it right now.
Well, we'll ride back with you and have a look around.
Right now?
Yeah. Jack, you get the horses?
Yeah, right away.
Well, do you mind if I give my horse a drink before we start back?
No, help yourself. It's around the side.
All right, thank you, Constable.
Well, Ed, you remember what you were saying a few minutes ago?
What's that?
Wanted something to turn up, with a little life to it. Well, it turned up all right, but it sure doesn't sound very lifelike.
No, sir. It wasn't turkeys that dislodged this turf. Take a look here, Jack.
What is it?
Look at these claw marks and the gray hairs. Coyotes have been trying to get at that body.
You're right.
And dig a little more in this direction, boys. A little to the left of where you are now.
I hope we don't have to dig too deep, Constable. We're starting to hit a lot of stones here.
Now, my hunch is you're going to hit that body pretty soon.
All the earth I've turned over on this farm. Never thought I'd be doing this kind of excavating.
Come over here a minute, will you, Jack?
Did you find something?
No. I've just been thinking. You know, something puzzles me.
Yeah?
This murdered man is obviously a stranger around here. Not one of these farmers had ever seen him before.
That's right.
But the man must have been around here before he was murdered. Someone must have seen him alive. These sodbusters will pick out a stranger any time and remember him for months afterwards.
Well, of course, the corpse could have been packed here from a distance. The job may have been done, 100 miles away.
Yeah, but why take the chance of discovery by burying it right at a person's back door when the murderer had the whole wide-open prairie to choose from?
Maybe it's someone with a grudge against Charlie Underhill. Someone who wanted to throw suspicion on him. Maybe one of his neighbors, for all we know.
Yeah, you may be right. Maybe one of the same men who are digging for the body at this moment.
Hey, Constable Henry! Come here, we've hit something here.
Come on, Jack.
You found the body?
Yeah, it looks like it. Looks like blue jean overalls he's got on there, too. Hard to tell exactly with all the dirt there. Keep shoveling, fellas. Go on.
Yeah, it's a body, all right. Looks to be still in a good state of preservation.
All right, keep going, man. We'll haul it out. Looks like we should find a few clues now, Ed. All right, men. I'll give you a hand with that.
Yeah. There he is.
Now, let's see what we've got. Well, the overalls have an Atlantic City tag.
Oh, fella came a long way to get himself murdered, didn't he?
Nothing much in the pockets. Country Fair badge, dated October 18th. A piece of quartz and a pipe.
So all we know is he probably came up from the States within the last 3 months, lived in Atlantic City, attended a fair last October, and was buried here sometime in April.
April?
Yeah. Look at that shallow grave. If the ground wasn't frozen, whoever buried him would have dug deeper. And the body couldn't have been buried last summer, or it wouldn't be in such good shape. I'd say the grave was dug early this spring.
Say, you're right there, Constable. You know, I tried to fence posts around the end of April, but when I got down a foot or so, I had to quit. Frost was still in the ground.
Well, by the bullet wounds in the head, he was shot twice behind the ear. Whoever did it certainly did a good, thorough job.
It's terrible to think of someone committing murder like that, you know, and right on my property, too. Say, maybe it was a suicide.
Charlie, suicides don't as a rule bury themselves.
Oh. Oh, no, I guess you're right about that, Constable. By the way, I noticed you sent all the other fellows home after they dug up the, what's his name here. Nice of you to let me hang around. Must say it's pretty interesting.
I'll confess our motive isn't to provide you with entertainment, Mr. Underhill. The body was found on your property. And you mentioned your brother found a cap a few weeks ago. Was it around here that he found it?
Well, now, I never asked him. That's my young brother, Pete. He was just an old cap, all greasy. But he started wearing it.
Perhaps he noticed something else. I'd like to have a talk with your family next.
Oh, sure. I guess they won't mind.
Jack,
No.
you might start questioning the neighbors again. See if any of them can remember seeing a stranger around here a while ago.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Now, we'll see what we can put together this afternoon and compare notes back at headquarters.
Constable, this is my sister, Muriel Underhill.
How do you do, miss?
Muriel is Constable Henry of the Mounties.
This is a terrible thing that's happened. Finding what you did right on our property.
Yes, miss. I'm sorry I have to trouble you, but just a few routine questions.
Yeah, of course.
How many are there in your family?
There's Paul and Muriel and me and my young brother, Pete.
That's all?
Well, that's all, yeah,
Except another brother of ours, but he left home 15 years ago after Mother died. I've looked after the family ever since. Oh, Constable, haven't you any idea who the murdered man is?
No, but I imagine we'll get an identification sooner or later. Now, this other brother you mentioned, does he ever come home?
No, he doesn't. He writes now and then, that's all.
What's his name?
Duncan Underhill.
Where does he live?
Oh, he moves around. We never know where he's going to turn up next. Last time we heard from him, he was at, I'm afraid I can't remember. Charlie, do you remember the name of the place?
No, I never saw the letter, Muriel. You lost it, remember?
Oh, yes. Oh, I'll try to remember, Constable, if you think it can help any.
No, I don't think it matters much. The main thing I'd like you all to do is to think back, try to recall if you saw any strangers around here about April. And then I'd like to talk to young Pete.
Not a thing, Ed. Not one of them remembers seeing anybody in April who doesn't live in that area.
You think they're telling the truth?
Seems to me they are. What did you find out from the Underhill family?
Well, they don't know anything either. You know, I'm inclined to believe that these hard-working settlers wouldn't be implicated in a thing like this.
And where do we go from here?
Well, I did get one thing. Not much. This.
Oh. What is it? Magazines?
Half a dozen of them, sewn together with binder twine. The Underhill boy found them on a trail about the same time he found the cap, near the spot where the body was buried.
Let's have a look at them.
I've already been through them. The only possible clue is this.
Huh?
If you look very closely here, on the cover, the top one, see?
Yeah.
Faint pencil marks.
Oh, yeah. What, is it a name? I can hardly make out.
Yeah, now look under the magnifying glass. Here.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Well, it looks like N.L. What's that? Rayner, or...
Yeah, or Raymer. The I isn't dotted.
Well, as you say, it isn't much.
No. That name could belong to a total stranger to this area. The fact of it is, Jack, we have to trail down an unknown murderer with no clues other than a description of the victim, a greasy cap, and a bundle of magazines.
Well, if that's all we have to go on, I can only suggest that we get started right away.
In just a moment, we'll return for the second part of this true story of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Queen's Men. And now we return you to the Queen's Men.
to Inspector Jeffries, RCMP Headquarters, Ottawa, from Constable Henry, Alberta Post. Search begun for slayer of man found buried on Underhill Farm. Accompanied by Constable Jack Howard, I first questioned neighbors in near surrounding area, then moved west, visiting farms and ranches, inquiring about 2 strangers seen last April. Could give only description of murdered man and carried with us his clothing. Response, nil.
Sorry, Constable, but that stuff you got don't mean anything to me. Blue jeans? Why, every man for 100 miles around wears blue jeans like that.
Yes, I'm aware of that, but look, this jacket is a little unusual. I'm hoping to find someone who remembers seeing a man wearing this jacket. Oh, yes, and there's the cap.
Here it is, Constable.
Thanks. I realize this cap is pretty standard, too, but it's all we've got to go on. So I'd appreciate it if you would think back and try to remember if you might have seen a stranger around your ranch in April.
What did he look like, Constable?
Well, he was about 5'8", weighing approximately 170 pounds, sandy hair, blue eyes, thin mouth.
Sounds kind of ordinary. Not the sort of fellow you'd remember very long.
Yes, but he may have been in the company of someone else. The murderer. Well, we don't know that, of course, but we have no description of him. Look, please, try to think. Do you recall seeing a stranger or strangers in this vicinity about April?
Well, now, let's see. I don't... Well, now, wait. Yeah, there was a fella hanging around here.
Yeah?
Looking for a job on my ranch.
What did he look like?
He, Oh, no, that wouldn't be him. Why, come to think of it, that was a year ago, April.
Oh, I think we better move on, Constable.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk to Hank Alberton down at Crossroads Farm? He's a guy that remembers folk.
We've seen him. We've talked to everyone in the area. Well, thank you anyway, sir.
No, don't mention it. Good luck to you. Hope you find it.
Well, time to start on the towns, I think, Ed. Stores, banks, land offices.
Yeah, and restaurants and hotels.
All right, Becky. We're going to hit the trail again.
The horses like the search anyway.
Yeah. They sure like to get out.
No wonder people look at us as if we're kind of crazy. A bundle of clothes and no idea whether it was one man or two. No idea their names.
Except maybe Rayner.
Or Raymer. Maybe.
Well, Constable, let's not get discouraged. Sooner or later, we'll pick up his trail. Hold still, Becky. And when we do, it'll just be a matter of time.
Yeah, all right then. We'll start scouring the town, starting with Gold Creek.
Right.
Come on. Yeah. He was short, with sandy hair, blue eyes, thin mouth. He may have registered in this hotel under the name of Rayner or Raymer. Please think back. It was probably in April. These are the clothes he was wearing. We believe he was from Atlantic City. Do you remember anyone answering that description, picking up mail here? It would probably be addressed general delivery. I'm sorry to bother you, ma'am, but if you could possibly remember anyone wearing these clothes coming into the bar around April? Short man, probably had an American accent. It'd help a lot if you could remember. I don't suppose there's the chance that you ever saw him.
Yeah, sure. I think I see that fella.
What? You do? Well, did he stay at your boarding house here?
Oh, no, but we used to eat at the same place. I remember on account of that jacket. I always liked a red jacket like that. I always wanted one. And I asked this fellow where he got it.
Do you remember what he said?
No, I can't remember where he said. Somewhere I couldn't get to, I think.
At Atlantic City?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, you taking this down, Jack?
Yes, I've got it.
Now then, look, do you remember this man's name?
No, not his last name. We used to call him the Kid.
The Kid?
That was what his buddy called him.
Well, then there was someone else hanging around with him.
Oh, yeah. You're a big guy. I didn't like him much. Big 6-footer in black sombrero. Said they was looking for a quarter section around here. He was one of the Underhills. Duncan Underhill.
Underhill? Are you sure?
Yeah.
That's the one they say left home 15 years ago.
That's how I remember. This big fellow, this Duncan, he was asking about his family. where they were living now.
And you directed him?
Huh?
You told him where they were living?
Oh, sure, yes. They got a farm about 20 miles out.
Yes, I know. Look, now, can you remember anything else about these men? Anything at all?
Like what?
Well, where else in town they might have gone, or who else knew them?
Oh, they only hung around a couple of days. Then I never saw them again.
Well, is there anyone in town who'd know the name of the young man that you call the Kid?
Oh, maybe down at the pool hall. They used to play a lot of pool, maybe, I think.
Good. Thank you very much for your help. Your information's been very valuable. We'll be back to talk to you later. In the meantime, I'd appreciate it if you'd go back in your mind and try to recall every detail of these men, their conversation, appearance, anything at all.
Sure, I do that.
Jack, you go down to the pool hall, see what you can find out. I'm going back to question the Underhill family again.
Understand that, Constable Henry, and I just don't understand it all. My brother Duncan. Well, I ain't seen him in 15 years.
Well, you're quite sure of that, Charlie?
Sure? Oh, sure I'm sure. I wouldn't even know what he looks like.
Well, that's a funny thing, because the man I was just talking to swore he was in town in April.
Well, how do you know it was Duncan?
Well, apparently your brother told him.
Then maybe it wasn't Duncan at all. Maybe some other fella. If he was the murderer, then naturally he might take another name, mightn't he?
Well, murderers don't usually take the name of an actual person whose family lives in the area. What does your brother look like?
Oh, well, now, 15 years ago. Oh, dear. Well, he was just a kid, Constable.
No pictures of him around anywhere?
No, not even a snap. Duncan ain't never cared much about his family. Only Muriel. She's the only one he even ever writes to. And what? Oh, well, that's a funny coincidence. There's a letter came for her from Duncan just today.
Where is it?
It's right there on the table. She hasn't come in yet. Say, what are you doing, Constable?
Is this the letter here?
Yeah, but wait a minute. It's addressed to my sister.
Well, I'm afraid I'll have to intercept this letter, Charlie.
Oh, you can't do that, Constable.
I'm authorized to do so. You say your brother had nothing to do with the crime?
I'm positive. Do I look like I'm lying?
No, you don't. I've always felt you were telling the truth, Charlie. So if you are, then this letter can't do any of you any harm. But it might answer a few questions for me.
I didn't get much information at the pool hall, Ed. They confirmed the descriptions, that's all.
Well, I found something, Jack.
That letter? What is it?
From Duncan Underhill to his sister Muriel. Postmarked McDermott, Alberta. Listen. Dear Muriel, I'm settled in here and found the piece of land I've been looking for, so thought I'd let you know. Don't give anyone my address, but if anything interesting happens, let me know so I can keep up with things. Incidentally, if you happen to get a letter from a Mr. Roller...
Roller? Rayner, Raymer, or Roller?
Could be. A letter from a Mr. Roller in Atlantic City asking about his son. Forward it to me and don't bother mentioning it to anyone. Young Roller was thinking of buying in with me, but went back to the States several months ago. But before that night, I dropped in to see you. He said at the time that he wasn't going home and his father might start hunting for him. So like I say, if you hear from him, I'll be glad to help him any way I can. That's all for now, best son.
Well, this doesn't prove Duncan Underhill did the killing.
But it certainly bears out the story that he was in this area and that he knew young Roller.
You think the victim is Roller, then?
Well, I certainly suspect it is. But I'm afraid we'll have to get the boy's father up here from Atlantic City to identify him. I've already wired him, sent the report to Atlantic City Police.
Meanwhile?
Well, while we're waiting for identification, we'll contact the authorities in McDermott and make some inquiries about Duncan. It looks like we're getting warm, Jack, and about time.
Yes, that's my son, all right.
I'm sorry, Mr. Roller. Very sorry we had to expose you to this. Would you come into the other room now?
I've been worrying about him for months. He was always going off, getting one scheme or another. I never thought this would happen to him.
It's a vicious crime, Mr. Roller. And we're going to see that justice is done. You can be sure of that.
Anything. Anything I can do to help.
Did you ever hear your son mention a man named Duncan Underhill?
Underhill? No, I don't think so.
Tell me, why did he leave home?
He was coming up here to Canada to buy a ranch. I didn't want him to come all this way, but he said he'd been advised he could get a good buy up here.
Who advised him, do you know?
He didn't say. Just that it was a friend of his who lived somewhere around here, knew the country, knew the values. Someone whose family had always lived here, he said.
That sounds like Duncan.
So my boy set off with all his money.
Money?
Yes. He just got a legacy from an uncle of his. $10,000.
Ah, there we are. Up to now, there's been no motive for the crime. 10,000 would be quite an incentive, I should think.
I've got some information on... Oh, I'm sorry, Constable. I didn't realize.
Now, this is Mr. Roller, Constable Howard.
How do you
do?
What is it, Constable? Anything on Underhill?
Yes. He's going by the name of Tom Spaulding.
Uh-huh.
Got a ranch just outside McDermott. Bought it 2 months ago for $10,000 cash.
Hey, Jack, over here.
Oh, there you are. I didn't recognize you in your slouch hat and dungarees.
You look pretty good yourself. I don't think Duncan will spot us. That is, if he ever turns up at this saloon.
Well, they seem to think you'll show sooner or later.
You tried his ranch again?
Yeah, I just came from there. Say, what happened when you talked with Muriel Underhill?
Well, she finally broke down and confessed that Duncan dropped in at the farm in April, late one night. None of the others knew he was there.
So Charlie was telling the truth?
Yep, he didn't know a thing about it. The sister's pretty worried. I think she suspects Duncan did it, all right.
Hey, Ed.
What?
There's our man. Just came in.
Yeah, it looks like him. You're right.
Yeah, someone talking to him. We better wait until he's alone. Less chance of starting a brawl.
Come on, we'll stroll over towards him.
Sure, you do that, Harry. You give me a price on the steers, and I'll think it over. All right, so long.
Excuse me.
Yeah?
Are you Tom Spaulding?
Oh, yeah. What do you fellas want?
You mean Tom Spaulding's the name you go by?
Well, sure, it's the name I go by.
Wasn't Duncan Underhill good enough for you?
What do you mean?
All right, you just come along with us. I'm Constable Henry of the Mounted Police. You're under arrest for murder.
And that's the way it happened. Arrested him and proved him guilty, too.
1 minute it looked like they didn't have a thing to go on, and the next they were hot on the trail.
When I tell this to my nephew, I wince when I think of his surefire remark.
And what's that?
Then it's true, isn't it, Uncle, that the Mounties always get their man?
The Queen's Men. Authentic stories of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Music under the direction of Sidney Torch. Script and adaptation under the supervision of John Adaskin. Produced and directed by Harry Allen Towers.
I solemnly swear that I will faithfully, diligently, and impartially execute and perform the duties required of me as a member of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
The Queen's Men. For the first time, authentic stories of the world-famous Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Tales of men who for almost 100 years have helped to keep peace in Canada. The Queen's Men. The Queen's Men. True stories of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Names have been changed for family protection. And now transcribe The Queen's Men.
Uncle Wally? Hey, Uncle Wally, what you doing?
Well, now, Davy, what does it look like I'm doing?
Oh, cleaning your gun, eh, Uncle Wally? What you getting it all polished up for?
Oh, just so it'll look nice.
You gonna shoot somebody with it?
Hey? Oh, maybe a fox or two one of these days out on the edge of the town. Those foxes that have been getting at Hank Jenkins' chicken, you know?
Gee, that doesn't sound very exciting. How many bad guys did you kill with that gun when you were a Mountie, huh, Uncle Wally?
Now, wait a minute, Davy. You ought to know by now a Mountie's got lots to do besides shooting off his gun.
Well, remember what you promised last night when Pop got talking about the gold rush?
The gold rush? Oh, let's see now. I didn't promise I'd go prospecting with you, did I?
No, gee whiz. You said sometime soon you'd tell me a story about how the Mounties caught that big train robber. Didn't you say you caught him?
Nope, not that time. Oh, but that was a long time ago. I can't remember just who it was caught him. I remember the big fuss there was at the time, but, I'm not sure I can just remember all the details accurately.
Oh, well, tell me anyway, Uncle Wally. Tell me the story.
Well, there were a lot of robberies in those gold rush days, you know. Lots of train holdups when that gold was getting toted around the country. There's something peculiar just seemed to happen to people when it came to gold. They wanted that gold. Some of them got it honestly, and some of them didn't.
Well, how about...
Just look at that gun gleam in the sunlight, will you? You see a beauty?
Well, tell me about the guy that didn't want it honest.
Oh, dear. It sure beats me the way you kids rather hear about the dishonest ones, you know?
Yeah, but if it wasn't for them, the Mounties wouldn't stay in business, would they?
Well, now, I guess you're right about that, Davy. Well, let's see now. How did that case go? That one where the gang held up the CPR train twice in a row.
Yeah.
What was that fella's name now? We'll say it was Mercer. Now, this Mercer, he was smart, you know. He got away with it twice, with the Mounties on his tail the second time, too. Now, wait, it happened the first time. I probably can't remember it to tell well enough.
Oh, sure you can, Uncle Wally. Sure you can.
You really want to hear about it,
You bet I do. Come on, Uncle Wally. Tell me how you caught him.
Well, I didn't catch him. I was new on the force then, and I only heard about it afterwards. It started with the express messenger on the CPR train one rainy night. Dark and rainy and no moon showing. And that train was highballing it out of Woods River with a safe full of gold dust in the baggage car. The express messenger, I remember him now. His name was Hugh. He was sitting there in the baggage car making up his report and chatting with the mail clerk, and both of them thinking they were safe as a pair of babies, I guess. Yeah. Now, I'm not sure what they were thinking, but you can just kind of picture them, can't you? Rattling along in that baggage car with the light from the lantern showing up the streaks of rain on the windows.
Engineer's really stepping it up tonight. Feels like we're doing 60.
This bumpy stretch of track really throws you around. That's going to be a messy-looking report, isn't it? The way it's hopping around on the table.
Well, I'm just about finished. Got the money and the gold dust counted and back in the safe, nice and secure.
Well, I'd rather count mail any day. Man, look at that rain come down.
Hey, what's happening?
Feels like we're stopping. Now, why would Jeff be breaking the train halfway between here and nowhere?
Well, maybe there's a cow on the track.
On a night like this? Don't be crazy. All sensible cows are at home in bed.
Maybe he's stopping so I can get this report finished easier. Well, Jeff knows what he's doing, I guess.
I hope so. I've been on this run for 2 years, though. I never remember stopping here, rain or no rain. Say, how do you count gold dust, anyway?
It's all been weighed and packaged. Count up the packages.
Oh, I see. Darn funny thing, stopping here.
What are you going to do?
Just, open the door and have a look out.
Can't see anything tonight.
That's a clear one.
What is?
A lantern. I can just see it through the rain. Someone's coming down the road bed alongside the train carrying... Who's there?
Say, you sound jittery. You don't suppose...
Well, what do you know? It's only Jeff.
The engineer?
Yeah, I can see him now. He's carrying the lantern, and he's got some guys with him. What's up, Jeff? You run out of coal? Jeff? Speak up, boy.
All right, get your hands up or I'll blow your heads off. That means you too.
Now, listen here.
Don't argue with him, Hugh. Do as he says.
That's right. Do as I say and I won't harm a hair of your head. Harry, Bud, take the engineer into the next car and keep him covered. Which of you two is the express messenger?
I am.
And you stay right here. The other one, you come on outside. Come on, nothing's going to happen to you. My buddies are just going to keep you company for a few minutes. That's a good fellow. Okay, boys, get them both out here. No rough stuff unless they start it. Me, I'm coming in out of the rain. Oh, some night. All right, keep them in the air, mister.
What are you after?
I'll give you 3 guesses. Where's the gold dust? In the safe over there?
How'd you get on the train?
I'm asking the questions. But since you're interested, we boarded the tender at Shafter when you slowed down. So that's his safe, huh? Well, I'll let you get it open.
Well, I don't know the combination.
Come on, stop playing games. Open it up, let's all stay friendly.
I guess you mean business.
That's right.
Okay. You don't mind if I lower my hands, then?
Lower them straight at the safe and nowhere else. I'd feel real bad if I had to shoot you. All I want is the gold, then you guys can all get on your way again.
Operator, get me the Mounties. Headquarters at Dunville, Saskatchewan. Hurry, please.
Yes, sir.
Say, Jeff, order me a cup of coffee at the counter, will you? No, don't bother bringing it over here. I won't be long.
RCM Police Headquarters, Sergeant Charno speaking.
Hello, Sergeant. My name's Hugh McNaught. I'm a CPR express messenger.
Yes?
There's just been a robbery.
Robbery? Where?
On the CPR train just outside of Marsh Neck, maybe 50 miles. I was guarding a shipment of gold dust heading for Vancouver, and the gang, there were 3 of them it looked like, boarded the train at Shafter and held up the engineer and...
Can you give me a description of them, McNaught?
Just the one who robbed me. I couldn't see the others. They were outside. It was raining. This fellow was tall, about 6'1" or 2, broad-faced, dark.
How was he dressed?
Something dark. I can't remember very well. Dark overcoat, navy blue or black.
You say he forced you to open the safe and then cleaned it out.
Yes. Then he and the rest of the gang made us all take our places on the train. Ordered the engineer to start her up. We stopped here at Marsh Neck. First place we could get to a phone.
We'll get to work on it. We want to speak to you personally as soon as you can get here.
Okay, Sergeant. I'll stop making the arrangements now.
Have you notified CPR officials yet?
Yes, sir. The mail clerk's calling them now from another phone.
Right. We'll see you as soon as you can make it. Goodbye. Baker.
Something happened, Sergeant?
It sure has. Train robbery outside of Marsh Neck. They got a safe full of gold dust. Look, I've got a hunch. Can you put your hands on that file on the gang that pulled the robbery last year at Stevenson?
Yeah, it should be in here somewhere. Well, that was the one where they held up the engineer and fireman and cut the engine away from the rest of the train.
Yeah. The stakes were gold that time, too. As I remember, there were 3 in the gang.
Some similarity to tonight's job?
Yeah, there might be. That bunch last year made a clean getaway. They got across the border.
Stevenson. Yeah, here it is.
Hey, just put it down here, will you?
Yeah, sure. When did this happen?
Half an hour ago. Now, where's the description? Yeah, here. The robber was tall and described as swarthy, broad features, tattoo on right arm.
How come they got that piece of information?
He was captured in the States after another train robbery. The report on that is here somewhere. Captured by a local sheriff. Yeah, here it is. Sheriff Thompson had to camp all night with his prisoner, bound him with bail wire. The prisoner escaped during the night.
Then that sheriff's had a good look at him.
Yeah. So's the express messenger who got robbed tonight. If we got the 2 of them together, the descriptions might check. I'd better contact the old man. If they're heading for the border again, we've got to work fast.
All
right, men. I've chosen the 5 of you because you've been stationed here longer than the rest, and you know this country. Sergeant Tarno will be in charge. Here are your instructions. Hold up the map, please, Constable Baker.
Sir?
Thank you. I've been in touch with the British Columbia Police, who are covering this area to the north and east, along with Indian guides. We've sent several parties out to the western part of this province, here.
Now then, the vital gap is the country to the south between the Canadian Pacific Railway line and the United States border. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Therefore, Sergeant, you'll proceed with your party as quickly as possible to Bullen's Ranch at Crystal Lake. From there, establish a line of pickets with a view to blocking any attempt on the part of the bandits to cross the boundary into the United States. Take the shortest cutoff to Douglas Lake. Well, your horses are waiting. Good luck, men.
Whoa, hold still there, Beth.
She doesn't like the rain.
I don't blame her. Getting hauled out of bed in the middle of a night like this.
You all set, Davies?
Yes, Sergeant.
Yeah, hold on to your mount steady now, man. We'll have to ride 'em hard to reach Steventown by morning, but that's my goal. We'll be glad of the rain. It'll keep 'em from getting too heated.
Hey, Sergeant.
Yes, Davies?
This turns out to be the same gang that got across the border last year, and we get 'em while we're rich men.
What do you mean, Davies?
Why, they pulled a string of robberies in the States, remember? There's a $20,000 reward offered down there for 'em.
Yeah, you're out of luck, Davies. We can't collect any reward. It's against rules and regulations. You know that. All right, men, we're away. I'll lead. If your horses get the tire, signal for a rest. Now, let's go.
In just a moment, we'll return for the second part of this true story of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Queen's Men. And now we return you to the Queen's Men.
Look down there, man. Our first resting place. Looks good, doesn't it?
Yeah, what ranch is that, Sergeant?
Marshall's. The commissioner notified him we'd be here about sunrise. They're going to feed and rest our horses. Not to mention resting us for a bit.
Well, I'm starving.
Look, now we're into this scrub country. We'll have to keep a sharp lookout. This is the kind of territory they're likely to hide out in, nice and flat. Looks harmless, but there are clumps of willows and large rock formations that offer pretty good shelter.
How long are we going to stop at the ranch, Sergeant?
Yeah, about 3 hours, I guess. Then we head for Crystal Lake. When we get there, we'll be met by another detachment. Corporal Ferguson, you return to Steventown. Maintain a patrol between these two places.
Yes, sir.
The rest of us will go on. Send another group back to patrol from Crystal Lake on. Now, we're not far north of the border, so if the bandits are proceeding on foot, they might be within 50 miles of here, or 50 feet. So let's all stay alert, tired or not.
Yeah, say, look, Sergeant, that ranch house. Smoke coming out of the chimney. Looks like they started cooking breakfast.
Yeah. Well, then what are we waiting for? Come on, let's go, Joe.
Get up, get up.
Now, according to my map, this deserted village should be just around the next bend. There should be a clearing, and the first buildings in view on the slope.
How big a place is it, Sergeant?
Just a handful of old buildings left, the inspector said. No one's been near it for years except the odd refugee from the law.
Well, why doesn't anyone take steps to destroy it?
Baker, it's plain to see you're still a rookie.
Well, why?
You remember the bush killer who gave us all that trouble last year?
Yes.
Well, he was traced from one of these deserted clumps of buildings that are dotted over these western plains. They provide an excellent refuge. Very obvious to the Mounties, but the criminal mind isn't capable of seeing how obvious it is.
Now I get it. A place for us to start looking.
That's right. It's not often we find our man in one of them. We can usually establish if there's been recent occupancy and sometimes pick up valuable clues. Now, here's the bend.
And your map's right. That's the first building, Sergeant.
Wow. Pretty desolate picture, isn't it?
What causes people to desert a community like this?
Well, disease very often, or a big fire.
We going to walk the horses all the way? I mean, don't you think we should storm the place?
No, we don't want to scare them off. No, we're just a couple of prospectors ambling into unknown country. We'll just approach it nice and easy.
Mm-hmm. Hello? Hello, Davies.
Yes, Davis here. Is that you, Baker?
Yes. Look, the sergeant and I are putting up overnight in the town of Scarsville. He said to call you.
Scarsville? Well, where in blazes is that?
Look, it's...
Hey, incidentally, you can break the news to him. We scouted every inch of the Crystal Lake area, questioned all the ranchers and storekeepers. There's no sign of him here.
Yeah, well, we think maybe we've got something.
Really?
You can locate Scarsville on your map. It's about 30 miles northeast of where you're located now. Now then, about 6 miles due north of the town in the hill country is a deserted village.
Yeah?
We've been over it once this afternoon, and it shows signs of having recently been camped in. Track marks of 3 horses. Now, the sergeant wants you to join us tomorrow. We'll be scouting the surrounding area.
But wait a minute, but how do I
What
find
kind of a question is that? You're a Mountie, Davis, and we're your men. Now come and get us.
Careful with your rifle, Baker. Nearly got caught on a vine there. This underbrush is dangerous stuff.
Yeah, thick, too. Why, even if we came on the bandits, we wouldn't see them till we were face to face, and by that time they could blow us up.
Well, we're not going to find them in here.
Yeah, then what are we doing in here, Sergeant, if you don't mind my asking?
We're just skirting back to that open stretch to the east of here. Probably nothing to that report of the 3 men seen camping, but still...
Was it one of our men saw them?
No, someone else told Corporal Shaver. Couldn't even say exactly where they were, but, well, we've tramped around for 3 days. We might as well give the area a good going over. Ouch!
What happened?
That's a twig. It just missed my eye. I'll be glad when we get... Say, there's a clearing ahead.
Yeah, and our horses. Say, Sergeant, didn't we just leave 2 horses grazing there?
Yeah.
Well, do you see 3 there now?
Yeah. Yes, it's Davies. Well, how do you suppose he found us? Davies, over here.
Say, Sergeant, do you see it?
See what?
Over there, look. Smoke. Rising above the trees.
You don't think it's a forest fire?
Not much of a forest there. Sergeant, what's your guess?
Campfire. Could be a campfire. Is that what you had in mind, Davies?
That's what I'm hoping, Sergeant. Kind of unusual to camp in this scrub area.
Well, there's no game around here. People usually camp for a reason.
Yeah, just what I was thinking. So, maybe it's Mercer.
Mercer?
Now, I guess I didn't tell you. The sheriff I spoke of, who arrested him in the States last year, got together with McNaught, the CPR messenger, and they decided the bandit was Mercer.
Wow. He's pulled a lot of big ones.
Yeah. Where are the rest of our men?
They're all back at the lake, Sergeant.
Well, then go back, round up a posse, and head back here, Baker.
Yes, Sergeant.
Look, I'll approach the smoke direct. You come along about halfway, then skirt the area, coming in from behind. If I find it's the 3 we're after, I'll engage them in conversation. But you stay hidden, and keep us covered.
Okay, Sergeant.
And don't get that rifle caught in any more bushes.
Hey, hold it. Shut up, I hear something.
Howdy.
Morning.
Sorry to butt in, fellas. I thought I smelled coffee. Say, you have got coffee. I was right.
Yes, we have coffee.
Well, now, I don't want to intrude. I just thought maybe you might indulge a little bush hospitality.
You're a Mountie, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking for some men who held up a train.
Oh, are you? Well, not around this neck of the woods, I guess. We haven't seen a soul.
Been here long?
Well, quite a while. We're prospectors. Own a ranch near here.
Oh? Where?
Not far from here. Go ahead, sit down. Have some coffee. Charlie, pour the man some coffee.
You mean pour him some coffee?
I mean pour him some coffee. You getting the idea, Charlie?
Oh, that's mighty nice of you. How's the prospecting around these parts?
Well, not bad, not good.
Gold's popular stuff.
It's got its good points. Hey, these guys you're looking for, you got any leads?
A few.
Well, I hope you catch him.
Well, I guess we'll get them.
Well, what is it they say? The Mounties always get their man?
Yeah, that's what they say.
Hey.
What's the matter?
I heard something behind us. Some sound.
What did you hear?
From the bushes. I'm just going...
You better just stay where you are.
What?
You boys answer the description of the men I'm looking for. Throw them up.
Now, listen...
You're covered from behind as well, so do as I say. You can come out now, Baker.
Well, I nearly gave the show away.
What happened? Did you get your rifle caught again?
No, just stepped on a particularly loud twig. What do you think, Sergeant? Think these are our men?
Take a look yourself.
They answer the descriptions.
Well, you're wrong, Mountie. You got the wrong guys.
Maybe.
Well, if you care to come along to our ranch, I can prove our identity. We're prospectors.
I don't think we'll take any tracks into the bush, thanks. We'll just sit right here and wait.
Wait for what?
A posse of our men will be along pretty soon, so if you're planning anything, you can forget it.
That coffee smells good.
Have a cup.
No thanks.
That's right, Baker. We'll just keep them covered. If they're who they say they are, they can prove it later.
Say, listen, Monty, how about untying our hands, eh? How come all the rough stuff?
Nobody's been rough with you, men. And it's no hardship to have your hands tied. After what you tried to pull last night...
You can't blame a man for trying to escape, can you? Especially if he's been falsely arrested.
You men aren't very smart. If you were innocent, as you protest, there'd be no need for you to attempt escape. You know, you're going to have a fair trial, you know.
Yeah, I could have ripped down that schoolhouse with my bare hands.
Exactly. That's why your hands are tied. They're going to stay tied until you're turned over to the provincial jail.
Yeah, I hope it's more comfortable than the schoolhouse.
That's a grand place. You'll love it. Feather beds, all the comforts of home.
You better pull over to the side, Baker. Here comes another wagon. It's a pretty narrow section of road here.
You know, better stop, Sergeant?
No, you won't have to. The other fellow seems to be stopping.
Hey there!
He calling us?
Pull up a minute, will you?
Better stop, Blake. Be prepared to deal with some interference.
You think he's going to be?
Well, we can't tell.
Which one of you Mounties is in charge?
I am, sir. Sergeant Tarnow. This is Constable Baker.
Oh, howdy, Sergeant. Constable. Wait. Get down. Well, this is a coincidence, running into you men like this. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Superintendent Blake of the Provincial Police.
Oh, how do you do?
Are these the men I've been hearing about that you captured yesterday?
Yeah.
I hear you put them in the Black River schoolhouse overnight.
Yes, they gave us a bit of trouble, too.
Well, my suggestion, Sergeant, is that you turn your so-called prisoners over to me and go back and do some more looking. I think you've got the wrong men.
How do you figure that?
Oh, I heard from one of the ranchers that you've made a mistake. That you've got a Mr. Jameson, a local prospector. He caught a glimpse of your prisoners this morning and feels certain there's been a mistake.
And you're going on the opinion of this one rancher?
Well, I seem to have seen these men myself. I think they've been prospecting around here quite some time. Well, they don't look like bandits to me. Oh, I think you better turn them over. You may look downright foolish, Sergeant, if you go all the way back to headquarters with two innocent men.
Well, I'll take a chance on looking foolish, Superintendent. You see, I'm under instruction from my own commissioner and no one else.
Now, look, I represent the provincial police. We have jurisdiction in this province.
And no one is withholding these prisoners from you. They'll be resident in the provincial jail by this evening. I'll be glad to hand them over to you there. All right, Baker, let's go. Well, we finally got them locked up, sir.
Good work, Sergeant. It's the Mercer gang, all right.
You know, that Mercer's a pretty smooth character. He almost had me wondering for a while if I'd made a mistake. Especially when that police superintendent was so sure that I had the wrong man.
Who was that, Sergeant?
Well, while we were escorting them back here, about 20 miles out of Stephentown, a man approached us on the road in a buggy. Said he was Superintendent Blake of the provincial police. Told me to turn my prisoners over to him and go back and look some more. He thought that I had the wrong man.
Funny thing for Blake to do.
Well, of course, I told him I wasn't taking orders from anyone but you, sir. Well, I must say, he got in quite a temper about my refusal.
I've known Dalton Blake for 20 years. Never seen him lose his temper. Very controlled man. Say, what did this fellow look like?
Well, he was big, fat fellow.
Blake's as thin as a rail.
Shock of black hair.
Bald as a billiard ball.
Well, I'll be...
Sergeant, I think you nearly turned Mercer over to one of his own men.
Well, I didn't come anywhere near doing that, sir, but I wouldn't think of it. Well, I certainly didn't suspect it. Well, what do you know about that?
Mercer's last try, eh?
That's right, sir. Very clever of him, too. But he'll never make another one.
Yep. Train travel's gonna be a lot safer from now on.
So that was the end of the Mercer gang, Davy.
Gee.
Yes, sir. Everybody was plenty happy to see those boys under wraps, especially the CPR.
What happened to him, Uncle Wally?
Oh, I was found guilty, all three of them. Got a good long stretch, too.
Gee, that's a swell story. Did it all really happen, honest, exactly like that?
Well, now I'm only telling it the way I heard it and the way I remember it. I was just a young Mountie then, and I listened to the story with my eyes popping. Just like yours are now, eh? But me, I hadn't ever captured anybody then, let alone tracking them down when they had the whole western prairie to roam around on, you know.
Well, what happened next, Uncle Wally?
What do you mean next?
Well, what robbery happened next?
Why, I don't remember if there was another big robbery right in our area for quite a long time after that. And even if there had been, I wouldn't be telling you about it, youngster.
Oh, gee, why not?
Come on, I guess it's time for lunch. One story at a time is enough. There'll be lots more stories for me to tell you.
Gee, Uncle Wally, I wish I was old like you and used to be a Mountie. Then I'd know all the stories myself.
Yeah.
The Queen's Men, authentic stories of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Music under the direction of Sidney Torch. Script and adaptation under the supervision of John Adaskin. Produced and directed by Harry Allen Towers.